If you reside in any of the great cities of the world or the land, whether it's Paris, New York City, Beijing, many others, you're familiar with the subway system. Of course, if you reside in Los Angeles, you're not familiar with the subway system, and you're confined to the rigors of driving on the 210, the 405, the 110, or heaven forfend the 5. Whatever the reality of your existence, though, you have to admit that the subway has a tremendous infrastructure signature to it. In other words, there was a lot of excavation done to dig out these immense caverns that the subways operate in. Some people really enjoy subways, such as General Katana. But whatever your thoughts are on subways, you have to admit that there was a lot of effort that went into their construction. Do we really think about how long these subways have been around? Because we see that, such as in New York City, the subway system is critical, especially if you want to bypass that surface traffic. And of course, the mainstream tells us that the reason there's no subway in the great city of Los Angeles is because the car companies conspired to keep it from happening. Only in Los Angeles, not in any other city, so I guess their plan didn't work out that well. Whatever the situation, when you look at the subway, though, you can't help but notice that there is a lot of infrastructure that's required to operate a subway, even when it's not operating underground. And how old is this infrastructure? Well, when you look at many of these building stones, you can see that they appear to be much older. What's the real story, though, behind the subway? When did it really start? What does the official historical account tell us? And what does this really tell us about the future of travel? Well, when we look at some of the images of the open subway areas, we can see the same precise architecture and the geometrical effort that went into establishing many of these arches in this particular subway tunnel. And whichever city that you happen to be in, you have multiple accounts of most of their initial subways starting in the 1890s to the 1910. Ah yes, that 20-year period when so many wonders were accomplished. It also happens to be that same period when we had the advent of heavy machinery. Because no matter how hard people or animals worked, there was no way you were going to excavate this amount of material. There's even some accounts that say that the initial subways in New York City required excavation of 12 miles worth of dirt. Now, granted, there's no pictures of dirt piled up 12 miles high, and you're probably not going to find any, which we could understand why. But we really have to ask this question. What kind of effort went into this? And when we look at these photographs that we have of the construction of the subway, we see many peculiar details that we certainly have to question. For example, does it look older than it really is? Why does a lot of the basic infrastructure and construction materials for establishing the subway appear so old, even though it's so new? This entryway here is very elaborately decorated. Is it possible that these subways might be much older than we realize, much as these buildings and structures that we explore? And why is it we always have to write these dates on these photos, whether it's 1906, 1913, 1907? I mean, am I really looking at the construction of a subway here, or have they merely torn up the street just to get at these pipes? Because if the photo caption tells me that they're constructing the subway, well, then I'm probably going to think they're working on the subway. Is that really the situation, or is there something else going on? The other thing I find interesting is that when we look at a lot of these photos, we don't see examples of this incredible heavy machinery that was used to excavate it. Now, I'm not saying it's not present, merely that it's not displayed in many of the photos. Well, perhaps because it was so new, it needed to be kept secret. Of course, you see other strange photos that provide other pictures of the construction of the surface area of the subway or the railway. We will look at the rise of the railway within the United States especially because it's quite an amazing achievement. It's considered part of that American exceptionalism. Now, whether that's just a perception or a reality is certainly up for debate, but what's going on back here? We have this very interesting structure in the washed out portion of this old photograph. When you look at the subways, though, you can see that there are examples that would allude to the construction, but example here, this is supposed to be a subway construction photo, but it almost looks like we have a trolley going by, and the only thing I actually see them doing in this photograph is merely working on the surface and the tracks. Now, of course, you could say, well, they're establishing the initial subway, but it's all in the title, subway. It's underground, and that's what it's known for. The whole point of the subway in a place such as New York City is it enables you to bypass all the surface traffic. And indeed, it's essential if you're going to get from the north side of Manhattan Island to the south side of Manhattan Island in a reasonable amount of time. Yes, you can take a taxi, but you're going to be banging around for quite some time. It's much more efficient to take the subway. And in California, it's much more efficient to take the 210 and sit in lanes of traffic when you're California dreaming or California nightmaring, whatever the situation may be. Are we really to believe, though, that this is the actual excavation of the subway? Pickaxes and shovels and people work so much harder. The animals work so much harder, too, in the 1890s to 1910, even though they also had that excavation equipment. There's also the situation with the pneumatic tunnel under Broadway that they talked about constructing in 1870 to 1873. And we even see examples of pneumatic message tubes. There was even one shown in The Simpsons when Mr. Burns wanted to talk to Pete Porter in Pasadena, which just happens to coincidentally lay off the 210 to this day and is the cause of much of the traffic jams there. I'm sure it's another coincidence. Here's another one of these images, though, where you get the impression that the infrastructure appears to be much older. How old are these pipes? How old are these bricks? When was this ribbing, if you will, actually established? How was it constructed? Why does it already appear so old? Well, here's the answers you'll get. Because it's very well documented that black and white photos make things look a little bit more older. And whenever they built anything new in the 1890s and the 1910s, it already looked old to begin with. Indeed, the rail tracks already looked old. The wood looked old. And you had time to just stand around and pose for photos, even though we're told about how hard people worked, how relentlessly that they worked. And then there's a conflicting account about the actual photographs themselves. But going past all that, I'm just considering the account of the subway system. What's the reality behind it? Is it possible, just possible, that these subway systems were already in existence in some way, shape, or form? Now, I'm not going so far in this exploration yet to suggest that there was some previous civilization that constructed these subway systems. But why do all these images, when we really step back and look at this, give the impression that these subways are actually being dug out? That instead of being built from scratch and excavated, that they appear to be cleaned out. They appear to be repaired and restored. Is that what's really going on? Or is it just merely the fact that there were limitations in what photographs they could actually capture at the time? This is a picture of one of the oldest, and indeed in the Guinness Book of World Records, the oldest subway in the world, constructed in the 1840s, originally as an open area, and then they bricked in the top of it. And this is considered the first quote-unquote underground railroad, if you will. Is that really the case behind it? And imagine the logistical difficulty and the challenges of any point in time, whether it's today or 1890 to 1910, really digging out a subway in the middle of a bustling city. Now, of course, you can look at the historical accounts of something such as New York City, where they had all the issues with having so many horses in the city at the same time. And how does the account of the pneumatic tubes actually fit into this? I almost said tombs, which kind of makes you wonder. All these things that are underground, when it was so difficult to get underground. But of course we can just assume that they could do it because they could also build these incredible structures that we see everywhere across the land. And indeed the portions of the subway or the rail line that runs in the surface. And imagine all the bridges and the elevated areas that they had to construct because, constructing elevated rail lines, that's a very easy process apparently. At least it was in 1890 to 1910. You don't see it happen as much. Not to say we can't do it today, we just opt not to do it. Really nice dome on this particular structure. What exactly are we looking at here, and what is this little structure all about? Is this another one of those special potties that we have, such as the one that we had in Paris? Just to give you an idea of scale, you can look over here at these horses in this cart, which appear to be a little bit closer to the camera. So what exactly is that structure? And then there's also the example of the Canton Viaduct in Massachusetts. Because even when they built the initial rails in the United States, there was a lot of infrastructure that had to go along with it. Trains weigh a lot, and they haul a lot, and therefore they require extensive bridges. There's also the fact that due to a lack of tractive force, trains can't go up slopes, or they require a lot of energy to do it. And when you look at this Canton Viaduct, you can see all the effort that went into constructing this. The finest engineering efforts of the 1830s. what they could do in the United States. Now, granted, no one's building a viaduct like this today because, well, it's just not efficient. And here you can see with the stone that we have, the foundation stone, and it says foundation stone on it, just to make sure you have no misconceptions. April 20th, 1834. Well, they should put a foundation stone, and they should have been very proud of that work. Of course, I'll still ask the question, why don't we do things like this today? For that matter, why don't we even use foundation stones? With a lot of the bricks that comprise this impressive viaduct, they even have the actual mason's marks on each of the bricks. Imagine how much time that would have taken. Were these marks originally part of the bricks, or were they added subsequently? I'm not suggesting any sort of conspiracy, merely asking questions, because you can see there are a lot of massive blocks that went into constructing this viaduct. Consider also the account of how they would have actually formed these blocks in 1830, how they would have transported them in place, how they would have set them so precisely. How much effort would it have really required? Because officially there was no heavy machinery available. Then we have this nice little information piece of the Canton Viaduct. I guess they had PowerPoint back in the 1830s, or someone made this subsequently, indeed having Excel in the 1830s. But you never know. Someone might come out and tell you, well, yes, it's very well documented that they had computers in the 1830s, and it's very well documented they had PowerPoint and Excel. Hey, look, I've got nothing against PowerPoint or Excel. It's just intriguing that we transpose the information in that viaduct with modern documents, because it's easy, I suppose. And then we also have no shortage of our drawings, our renderings, that show us the impressive construction of the subway right through the middle of the city. And that's the part that we often gloss over, because how extensive, if there was an existing underground rail system, would it have really been? Why do we have all these references to underground rails through time? And indeed, what's the actual unfolding of the chronology? Because you can see in some of these older photos, we have many of the impressive structures in the streets that have already been established. But how much effort really went into building these subways? And are they really going into the surface here, or are they just simply building on top of the surface? In other words, is it difficult to get the photos, or at that time frame with the limitations of photography, to obtain the photos, to really show the difficult excavation process? I think of the film Escape from New York and the deleted opening bank robbery scene where Snake Plissken and his friend Taylor attempted to escape the authorities of the United States Police Force. They used an underground rail line to escape from Colorado all the way to San Francisco. And in that particular fictional story, the Underground Railway ran all over the United States. And if you read the book on Escape from New York, it's a much more dystopian world. The Underground Railway was required because of gas attacks on the United States during the war in that fictional story. But the concept, though, of an actual underground rail line that connects major cities and major areas must be explored, because we have no shortage of modern expeditions where they're constantly excavating and exploring older subway lines. At least that's what they officially tell us. But what's the limitations behind it? Does it allude to the fact that there might have been a much more impressive and pre-existing infrastructure system? Or were these blocks really constructed? At least in this particular image, these blocks actually look a little bit newer, perhaps more what we'd expect to see. And yes, it is possible to ascertain the difference between what's new and what's old, even monochromatic images in video. I can remember having a black and white TV and watching Star Trek The Next Generation on it, and things still look new even if it's monochromatic. And here we have an example of this underground subway, if you will, in New York, along with the brand spanking new New York Post Office that we've looked at before. And of course, it's just a rendering, but imagine the concept. It gives the idea that there is a possibility that these systems, that this entire infrastructure and this connection of underground railways were actually connected. And even think about that terminology, especially if in the United States. When you say underground railway, oftentimes there is a very particular connotation with it. And so what does it really mean? Also, what's the understanding between the difference between a trolley, a steam locomotive, and the use of rails? Did both use rails? Could both have used the same signature? Or just imagine, if you will, since we're considering ourselves with the future of travel, if you actually had a vehicle that could operate in all manners. that was powered through many different means and had different means of generating the original power. Then again, what kind of limitations would you have on ground travel? Because, as we'll explore with the trolley later in this exploration, imagine if you had all these options. You had the ability to travel underground, you had the ability to travel on the surface, and then you had the ability to travel on the air, or through the air. And consider the complete lack of limitations on that. Consider the fact that if you had the ability to move materials and improve your logistics, then you'd have no limits in terms of what you could construct. It would actually provide a reasonable explanation for why we have all these unbelievable, at least from our perception today, achievements, whether it's with the structures or even with the underground excavation. But we're just looking at one means right now because we do have numerous examples of the same kind of impressive architecture underground. And of course, we know that they had to have some capability to excavate the foundations for these great structures that we've looked at. But imagine excavating all this. 12 miles of dirt, or was it much, much more? And again, none of the images that we have really seem to convey that actual account that we have. We're told that yes, they did it. But how did they do it? Digging? Animal power? Or was there more advanced heavy machinery that we just simply weren't aware of? Because there are some conflicting accounts, and you might recall when we did our Panama Canal exploration, we looked at that original steam excavator that was apparently around in the 1800s. You remember that one that Teddy Roosevelt himself was driving and operating. So I don't know, maybe they had the ability to get Teddy Roosevelt to all these subways at the same time, and he personally supervised it. There's also the reality of the fact that there's extensive cave systems that exist, at least across the United States. And would it be possible that these cave systems could be connected? Or, even more absurdly, to the minds of some, is it possible that these cave systems are the remnants of some sort of underground highway? Some sort of transportation infrastructure that existed in the distant past, that parts of it were able to have been accessed more recently, and dare I say even pressed back into service, and then of course using our more quote-unquote modern transportation implements, our current version of the subway, if you will. Just think about all these things, and we're only concerning possibilities right now. But why is it that there's not an entire underground rail network that connects all the major cities of the United States? How much time would that save? How much effort would that save, whether you're talking logistics or the simple transportation of people? And how fast could some of these trains go, hypothetically speaking? What if you had more advanced rail systems that could travel much faster? Now, of course, people always talk about the infinite limitations behind everything, but I always find myself fascinated by the fact that there's limitations when there need to be, and yet there's no limitations when there needs to be, if you follow me. But looking at some of these photos where we always have people just standing around and posing and never smiling for whatever reason, we do have to ask those questions because they're not questions with easy answers. It's almost as though these images that we have, instead of simply answering our questions, always and invariably generate many more questions. And as I've stated, when you do image analysis, you have to remember, the image may be accurate, it may have been altered in some way, shape, or form. Again, no conspiracy is required to explain it. It could simply be an error with the actual processing, or maybe they were photographing something else. Maybe this wasn't the construction or the excavation of this subway tunnel. Perhaps this is merely an effort to clean it that happened after it was constructed. Again, I'm not suggesting any sort of conspiracy because people always seem to think that there's a conspiracy being suggested when in fact none is even being suggested. I guess some people always have it on their mind. And here you see an example of one of those earlier machines that apparently we had. But how mobile would it have been? What power system did it actually operate under? And official history tells us, well, it operated under steam power. Maybe so, but how effective were they? There were also different methods that we have drawings of the way they constructed the subways. Of course, we also have wonderful drawings and artistic renderings of the great pulley system that they used to put the blocks in place in Baalbek in what is today Lebanon. But don't you find it interesting that nobody could ever build a practical working example of one of these pulley moving systems? They couldn't even build a downscaled version of it, let alone the life-size version. So as always, I leave it to you to decide what to make of these images and what the real story behind the establishment of our subway systems are across the land. What are these photos really telling us? And why is it everything always seems to have a difficult origin story behind it? I mean, did they really just have thousands and tens of thousands of workers digging out the subways? If there was a historical account that told us that they managed to move 12 miles worth of dirt in 36 hours, and they said they did it, would anybody question it? Are there accounts that we have of certain incredible feats being done in a very short amount of time, currently, that no one questions? And what were the limits behind human labor and horse labor that we have? I mean, look at these carts. This is what they show us in this image, and this is what they incline to us, was the method that they used to cut out these subways. But then we have conflicting images such as this that show more advanced machinery, apparently. So what was really going on? Were they using a variety of different methods? Or was it the fact that they actually found a lot of this machinery, to include the excavation machinery? And that's how we actually explain the presence of these incredible subways. But what are your thoughts? Why didn't we ever follow up with the pneumatic tube? Why didn't they really construct an underground rail line in the United States or in other nations? Or did they? Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the weekly live stream for the Restitutor Orbis channel. I'm your host, Lucius Aurelian, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. A greeting to all Prime Explorers, viewers, and all others that are joining the channel. For this particular live stream exploration, we're going to be looking into the concept of the underworld, or the underground. And for our initial image, what I've picked out here is a good old image from Lord of the Rings, specifically the Mines of Moria. And if you're familiar with the Lord of the Rings, and if you're not, you might recall that this is the great underground kingdom of the dwarves, or the underworld. I want you to keep this concept in mind quite a bit, because if you've seen the film, and I know pretty much everyone has, especially Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy, and of course the very first one, The Fellowship of the Ring, where they prominently featured Moria. Now, yes, I'm well aware in the other adaptations they've featured it, but thinking back from the book and remembering the incredible columns and all that could potentially be underground and underworld, I'd like you to keep that in mind as we do those explorations, because while it may seem like it's some sort of far-off fantasy, there's actually a lot more practicality behind it than we like to think. And even the mainstream also acknowledges that we do have underground complexes, and we're going to look at those. And there's some other images that we have of Moria and some of the incredible detailing that the dwarves did in the Lord of the Rings franchise, or Lord of the Rings intellectual property, however you want to say it, Tolkien's work. And just some of the incredible detailing behind it. And what are your thoughts behind the possibility of a great civilization that could do something like this, that was in the underworld? Yes, good old Neil there, right? Everywhere. I forgot about that. Thanks for mentioning that, Jamie. And it's really good to see everybody tonight. And I've got a lot to cover, so I just want to dive into it. And Jamie says, highly probable. And we're really going to spell out each of the details behind why it's highly probable. And we're even going to look at some mainstream examples, but then we're also going to look at some more fantastical examples as well. But I start with Moria because I think it's a wonderful example in terms of how far things could really go. And it does seem like it's a little bit of a fantasy, but we actually have many examples of things that do exist in the underworld. And Marine says, stronger than the foundations of the earth. So very true. Very true in many ways. And I'll admit, when I first saw Fellowship of the Ring, I was very amazed by the way they did the adaptation of Moria. And of course, they had a really wonderful, suspenseful scene that they filmed down there with the collapsing stairway. We always remember it, but I'm just showing the artistic representations of Moria out of respect to the film. But I remember reading also the initial descriptions of it in Fellowship of the Ring and recall how detailed the dwarves did when, or excuse me, recalled how detailed the dwarves were when they did their mining, the elaborate structures they had, but also what they were looking for. Now, it's intriguing when we think about all the examples we have across the land of what may really be there. PJCC West references the Misty Mountains. Yep. And oddly enough, you're going to be surprised to find out that we do have numerous examples of large-scale complexes that are located in mountains, and they're a little bit more common than you might like to believe. So, oh yeah. Well, and then, Chassis, the one difficult thing when, we talk about reading off of older newspapers, and I've actually found this to be an issue. They may be genuine, they may be misinformation. It's hard to tell in some cases. And it's one of the things that I've had to go through. Because sometimes you think you have some good information and it's not. Now, by all means, I'm not denigrating anything anyone else has read from it. We all have to decide for ourselves if it's legitimate or not. So it's intriguing when you think about how many different variables there could be behind it. And Troy, welcome. Thanks for joining. And Fairy Girl references that there are many in Australia. Yes, very true. There are many underworld or underground complexes all over Europe. We're going to look at a couple. I didn't select any from Austria, but yes, they are all over, beyond any shadow of a doubt. And so we'll move on to this last image here. And what I always found intriguing about the concept of Moria and the underground civilizations is it's not just in the Lord of the Rings. You find many different examples of it. Jules Verne talked about it, numerous authors, numerous explorers were always looking for things in the underworld, if you will. And it's mentioned in so many different ways. And so there seems to be a little bit more practicality behind it than we might like to believe. So since the dwarves say they call it a mine, but really it shouldn't be called a mine, why don't we start off by looking at a real mine, one of the deepest mines in the land, in fact. And if you bear with me for a second here, we'll get up the Great Mine in South Africa near Johannesburg. And you might be surprised to find out just how deep this mine really is. Deepest gold mine in the world. Now, who's aware of this location? Anybody aware of the deepest gold mine being near Johannesburg? I know it's come up in a couple of articles. This is South Africa. Yes, indeed. It's amazing what a culture can accomplish or build when the average lifespan is 200 to 300 years, especially when there is no sign of tooth decay or any disease. Oh, that's a great point, Kish. I like that. So, so true, too. And you think about all the effort that went into this. Anybody still there? Looks like we're having a few bounces here on this one. It's just one of those evenings. I don't know if the connection's going to hold up. All right. You got me now? I don't know. I'm having odd connections here. One second. Well, you would have me sooner or later. Somebody's been trying to disrupt these lives. Yeah, no doubt about it. Okay. Give me one second. Well, I'm on the target list this week, so what can I say? Okay, well, I'm not going to end the stream here. I'm going to leave this video, come back in a second. Okay, I'm back. Let's see here. See if this is better. Okay, can everybody... All right, good. So we'll move on. Sorry about that. Anyway, looking at the mines, these are some very impressive mines. And does anybody know how deep under the surface these mines actually are? Now, they're looking for gold. That's what they tell us. And here it goes again. It seems like they're just trying to cut me off. I don't know why I can't. Oh, goodness. Very frustrating. Yeah, it might just be my particular location. And now it's good. Okay. All right. Well, we'll drive on and see if it holds up. So, anyways, looking at some other examples of this mine, though, you get the impression that there's a little bit more of a structural integrity behind it. And that's probably the most surprising element about it. So, yes, I know. There's a lot of people that don't seem to care for what I'm doing, and that's totally okay. And you know what? If they just have to delete me to stop me, then so be it. But I'll keep pressing on. I don't quit. I don't know how to quit. So, Coleman Bentz, he's streaming live from the underworld. That's why the connection's bad. Yeah, I wouldn't think the internet connection is best from the underworld, but what can you do? Need a better router, right? And Sarah, perhaps people want to silence you. There's no doubt. People have wanted to silence me from day one, and that's okay. So, hey, Vaughn, good to see you. Welcome. And then Steve shares 22,000 miles of tunnels under Cripple Creek, Colorado. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more than that. Liz here, you shall not pass. Yeah, it feels that way, doesn't it? Anyway, let me get to the real point, though, behind some of the images with this gold mine in Johannesburg. So you do get hints of the structure being a little bit more developed. Now, this looks like what we'd expect a mine to look like. But then here, you get something like this. Now, we have seen this before, if you recall the Niagara exploration. And you'll find that this structure here resembles many other structures here later in the exploration, provided we can make it. I'm hoping we do. And you notice with the walls and the ceiling here, what exactly is going on? And remember, this is a mine. And Vaughn says, if I asked if I've upset somebody, I've been upsetting people just by doing this from day one. So it's all good. Oh, Troy Dodd says it does look like Labyrinth. Yes, it does. Those long hallways that lead to nowhere. Without any shadow of a doubt. It looks like they have that. So Fairy Girl shares there's a huge tunnel system in Austria, which has exactly the same walls. And you know what? You see it everywhere. And it's a great example. And thanks for pointing out Austria. I need to get back to Austria too. Fun explorations to be done there. Ah, Robert. Yes, it does look like those tunnels. And you'll be surprised what other tunnels it looks like too. Now here we have a little bit more of the classic mining equipment and a bit of what we'd expect from the mining setup. So it seems to alternate, you know, and again, we're looking at images, and no, I have not been to the bottom of this mine myself, but this mine is talked about, and there are numerous workers that have been down there and do give firsthand references to what's going on down there. Now, this gives you some idea of how deep it is. At least it gives you a good idea of the layout of the mine. But I think this image right here, and I know I'm flipping through this quick, but this image right here gives you an idea of just how deep this mine really is. A gold mine, all the way down to 2.2 miles under the surface. Now, what are your thoughts about living, working, operating under the surface? What do you think about that? Troy, I really appreciate that. And for the new members, welcome. Thank you very much. Yes, it does kind of give that appearance of being a rather uniquely shaped tunnel, doesn't it? Albie shares, I would not go there. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, you know, and I'm not just talking about doing a live stream down there. There is something about being deep underground, and there are some people who have innate reluctance, let's say, to go that deep underground. But just imagine being that deep in the land that far. So yeah, for the new members, by all means, check out the content. And thank Troy for that. Chemical General here says, you only go underground out of necessity. Absolutely right. I mean, nobody goes underground because they want to. Now, a lot of times we have accounts of people going underground for the reset. And indeed, in one of the explorations coming up, we're going to talk about some people who went underground, the Hopi specifically, and the people or entities or whatever you want to think of them as, the ant people who helped them. There's a lot in that account to look at. So Heidi says more than a reluctance. Yes, very true. Very true. And so just think, this is just a gold mine. This is real. It exists in Africa, South Africa, excuse me, to be specific, near Johannesburg. And you can go all the way 2.2 miles under the surface. So just an operational gold mine. Well, let's take a look at another example because I've got a few more. And we're actually going to go back to the United States now. And how many of you would guess that there's actually a mine like this in Kansas City? Yes, back to Kansas City. And this is the entrance to it. And does anybody know what this is called? And for those of you joining us for your first live stream, welcome. PJCC West asks, are you familiar with Cerro Gordo mines in California? Brent Underwood purchased them years back and has been documenting his work on YouTube. Yes, and that's a great point. There are mines everywhere across the land. And Jacob Law says the plasma blast. Yeah, if you want to survive the plasma blast, you go underground out of necessity. So, and Queen Peachy Queen, huge under KC. Thank you. Yes, Subtropolis. This is called. Music holds the secret. We're not in Kansas anymore. Oh, so true. And let's take a look. What's this really look like? So this has been around for a while now. They say that they built this. They say that they tunneled this out and that this was originally a limestone mine. So, of course, we kind of blur what was already there and what was augmented. Now, these aren't the best pictures. This just shows you that this subtropolis has been there for a while. Now, here's the overall layout of it. And this just gives you an idea of how much area it takes. Now, we'll look at some more dramatic images here in a second, but here's old Arrowhead Stadium where the almighty Kansas City Chiefs play. And that's to scale. Just to give you an idea of how large this subtropolis complex is. Kansas City, Missouri. At least, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas City, Kansas, KCK. And no, I need to get this explored myself because I didn't get the chance to look at this when I did the Kansas City exploration. But what are your thoughts on this and the size of this complex? Maureen says that's a lot of flags. Ah, yes, that's always the way it is, isn't it? So very true. Very girl. I don't believe that these tunnels are new because in Austria, researchers took samples and the tunnels dated back to over 10,000 years. I would agree with that. And who knows how old they are really, Fairy Girl. Very good point. So let's take a closer look at this subtropolis complex. So yeah, they do a whole run there because that's how much room they have. And it's a run that's entirely underground. Now, I'm not recalling how far they go, but just the fact that they have that many people and they complete this entire run, I thought that was a very dramatic example of being able to fit that many people in this complex, do the entire run underground to start to give you an idea of the size of it and the immensity of it. They say it was originally a limestone mine, but, decide for yourself. Music holds the secret. Probably what's under the Denver airport. Yeah, who knows what's under there, so. And Dwayne shares, when I lived in KC, I had customers down there, and it was very easy to get lost. Very true. And you can see why if you can do a whole run there. So, Vaughn, we never hear a word about underground unless it's a new discovery. Oh, so very true. Very true. So they actually used it. I think these were Chevy Vegas. I don't know. I didn't follow cars in the 1970s. Okay, aside from the almighty Ford Falcon that appeared in Mad Max, 70s cars just didn't grab me. I'm familiar with the Mustang that James Bond drove, but I kind of ignore 70s cars. I'll admit it. But here's a spot where they stored all these cars. They use this for storage space too. So again, another indication as to why you could get lost in there, and they just have infinite amounts of underground storage space. And you might be surprised that this is over 100 feet underground in this old limestone mine, or so they say. And Sky Sage says, of course, the Underground Railroad. Yes, and this really makes you feel like there was an actual Underground Railroad, even though they say there wasn't. So Total attendees. Is that some underground race or something? Yeah, they do the entire race underground, apparently. Never participated myself, but maybe I'll have to look into it. Okay, the cars just break my brain more. Oh, yeah. We'll look at some more. I mean, it's a huge complex. And, that's one of the things we have to acknowledge. These are real, these really exist. Now, here's a better image, just giving you an idea of the area where you can see this individual here in the distance. And then you can see some of these doors. So, I mean, you can use this for everything, underground storage, all sorts of applications. So, was it already there as part of the mine? Did they augment it? Did they just add the lights? Who really knows for sure? I mean, again, it's conflicting accounts as usual. And Total Tendy says, makes me think of Death Race. Ah, yes. Death Race 2000. Where's David Carradine when you need him? And Ishko, good to see you. Thanks for joining us from Northern Macedonia. The first rule of underground is you don't talk about underground. You know what? You are absolutely right. I couldn't agree with that anymore. So, and Kathy says dumbs. Well, actually, we're not going to talk about dumbs, Kathy. We're going to talk about ums because, if I say what dumbs is, what's going to happen to the video. But we will talk about official acknowledged underground military bases. And Vaughn shares it looks surgical. Yes, absolutely. The cutting on all this, the spacing, it looks like there was a lot more detail put into this. Now, again, I don't know the details on this. It's interesting to me now whether our civilization built this, it augmented it, it repaired it, or it was already there. It's very impressive either way that this does exist. It proves a lot. And here's another photo of that run that they're doing, and you can see that they are underground. And of course, people dress up for it. Well, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't want to participate. I'm just kidding. It looks like they're having a grand old time. And if you run underground, you don't have to worry about the sun. That's always the hardest part for runners, being out in the sun. And Sarah's in tobacco country. Ah, yes. And there's no shortage of underground complexes there. And in the Appalachians, all the, what was it? I was trying to remember when they were trying to hustle moonshine there and infiltrate that. They apparently dug a lot of caves for that because, digging caves is an easy thing to do. So anyway, some more looks at this subtropical or this subtropolis. And here, this diagram actually shows you how far underneath it really is. So you got soil, you got the Winterset limestone, you got shale, and then they call it the Bethany Falls limestone. Ah, yes, just like we always do. We always have that really fancy name for the limestone, because there's so many different types of limestone, so many different types of shale. Which type is this? But to scale, this just shows you how far underground this subtropolis complex really is, with all that area behind it. So pretty amazing. And definitely calls into question, was this something we really did, or was it just something we augmented, repaired, and cleaned up? Thoughts? What do you think? EP65 says, almost every single mountain or even hill must have some tunnels or caves. Yes, it does give that impression, doesn't it? Jamie Griffin, a laser master boring unit can cut through 7 kilometers of rock a day. True. Modern technology can do it, and I don't deny that. Oh, yeah, laser mazer. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And Chassis shares, I went on a Tennessee Valley Authority Raccoon Mountain pumped storage plant tour as a kid. I think around 100 stories underground. I wish they let us take pictures back then. Yeah, no doubt about it. And Sky Sage, yes, beneath the Pentagon are many tunnels. And I'm glad you said that. Beneath every single structure, especially the old world structures, we have nothing but tunnels. Building number 1 on the channel, the Iowa State Capitol, a slew of tunnels underneath it. But that's every old world structure. Dwayne says, well, they needed to go somewhere to escape the dragons. Yeah, probably. Or whatever was going on. And Battlestar Utarian says, I'll bet the electricity has been there for many moons too. It's good to see you. Well, glad you could join us while you're working. Appreciate it. So. And Liz has joined us from Fayetteville. Yes, there's all kinds of stuff nearby there. Some of my favorite explorations in the Carolinas. I need to get back there. Anyway, so that gives you an idea of Subtropolis. And here's another image show, again, still using it for vehicle storage. I mean, why not? You could store U-Haul moving trucks down there and have room to spare. Probably get a couple C-141s down there, some very large cargo planes. I mean, who knows? You can get all the parts, the fuselages down there. I mean, just think about it. The potential's unlimited. You saw earlier how much area it takes. Here's another image where you got a semi with a tractor trailer going through it. And again, you see these gigantic pillars, and this is what they call the Bethany limestone. There's a town called Bethany up in Missouri, strangely enough. But yeah, I'm as confused as you are about these naming conventions. And Kathy shares, Ironton, Ohio has a lot of tunnels. What a fitting name, Ironton, Ohio. That would be the kind of place that would have a lot of tunnels, right? And Lorene says, I've been severely hoodwinked. Well, we all have, because we take a lot of things for granted. Just like Sarah in the film Labyrinth, but we learn not to. And Vaughn says, it's all very uniform no matter where you look. And I think that's probably one of the most amazing details behind this subtropolis complex. So anyways, let's see if we got any more on this one. And I already looked at that one. Oh, and apparently they also store everything from grain to coffee. Oh, yeah, look at that, the coffee. Well, RB hasn't joined us, but, I wonder if she could get her coffee out of a great storage complex underground like this. I wonder if it tastes good. Probably does. Don't have to worry about it. But just an example of some of the things they have down there. Who needs an isolated seed vault when you've got this, Kansas City? And then this is another image from how things break down in Subtropolis, a little bit more dramatic here. You can see how some of this, it seems to be natural, but when you look, you get the impression of it being artificial. I don't know. I mean, you could possibly see some of the rock face here being more natural, but somebody tunneled through it. Of course, we got the walkways back here and another walkway there. Looks like we got water. I mean, again, just giving you the idea of how extensive this complex really is. Adam Slater says, don't forget the South Americans say they went underground to weather the flood and came out after the war with the Nephilim. True. And that's a very interesting account, too. Maxwell Smart says, airship coffee. I was wondering when somebody was going to notice that. Yes, I couldn't resist. What can I say? And Sky Sage, hideaway for our nuclear subs. Yeah, and if you're familiar with Mono Lake, there's a lot of rumors about that up in California. Off of, I think it's the 395 there. Very interesting place, the magnificent state of California. Anyways, I think this is the last image I have. Yeah. And again, our banner right now is we're just looking at mines. So different examples of mines, really get an idea of how large these complexes are. And Dallas says, I'm pretty sure the tunnels are where the cops... No. I mean, you can do anything in those tunnels, really. I mean, anybody can do anything. You've got all the space. You could have civilizations under there. I think that's the point. But yes, I get what you're saying. And Vaughn says, maybe that's where they hide the airships. Yeah, that could be. Maybe that's where they could hide everything. Ooh, old world Micmac here. Tobacco comes from the underworld. Very true, and a very good point. And Dwayne says, it's obvious we need to go back to the time before power tools. We seem to create better structures then. Yeah, and we seem to have no limitation between or behind what we could tunnel underground or making these great foundations. So anyway, that takes care of that part. So now we're going to transition to complexes or underground military bases. Now I know we talked about the DUMs, but we're just going to talk about the UMs. And what's the difference? Well, these are recognized UMs. So give me 1 second here and I'll transition. And as I'm doing that, please hit that like button. And thank you everybody for joining us. So give me 1 second here and I'm going to pull up our underground military bases. And we got a couple. I'm sure you're going to recognize the first one. And 1 second here. Stop screen, present, share screen. And here we go. Now, does anybody know where this is? Or what this is called? Somebody mentioned it earlier. Oh, look at that. EP65, Cheyenne Mountain. That it is. That it is. And isn't it great to see it? And by the way, have you ever stopped and asked the questions? I like this from Queen Peachy Queen. Uh-oh, it's glitching again. Can you hear me okay? Queen Peachy Queen says it's the moon, so Oh, yeah. And that it is. And Kathy Childers has it. Yes, this is Cheyenne Mountain. Okay, it's black. All right, give me 1 second. I'm going to jump out and jump back in. Hold on. 1 second. I'll be right back. Actually, why don't we just do this? I'm going to put us on a 2-minute break, and I'll be right back. Okay, let's see if that's any better. Yeah, I know. It's been a little disrupted tonight, so what can I do? SS, does Mono Lake have any water? Yes, it does. Quite a bit, actually. But it's quite intriguing. Okay, well, I don't mean to bypass intermission, but I'm going to because it's working right now. So I'm just going to roll with it, okay? But yeah, thumbs up while you wait. But we'll move on. So yes, this is Cheyenne Mountain. Oh, thanks. Thanks, my Bailiwick Zone. I appreciate that. So anyway, let me get back to the proper banner. So we're back to underground complexes, Cheyenne Mountain, constructed in the early 1960s. And this is an earlier photo of the Cheyenne Mountain area where they constructed this impressive complex. And if you've seen the movie War Games with Matthew Broderick, Ali Sheedy from the early 80s, 1983, it's prominently featured, especially the interior. Everybody probably recognizes the entryway vault. But has anybody ever seen wondrous construction photos of NORAD? And that's the main base that's located here. I've lost color in the pictures. Good one, Dwayne. Good one. No. See, color's back. May constructed. Right. Ah, yes. That's a kind of interesting mountain. Oh, isn't it ever, Albie? And total attendees. Yep, that's the classic NORAD door. And the thing about it is, yes, this is something they want everybody to see. It's prominently featured in films. Everybody talked about it. So be aware of it. Of course, everyone's familiar with this, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex. And, underground military base, they build it in a mountain. So again, another account of a current civilization, at least accordingly, building in a mountain. Now, is that what really happened? Or did they just happen to find some stuff in there, clean it off, and repurpose it, and then, turn it into a modern military bunker? I don't know. It's up for you to decide. This is a 1961 colored photo. But again, how much excavation did they do in there? How did they really dig it out if that's what really happened? I mean, I'm just asking questions. I know, they'll tell us. We got the excavators in there. It was a lot of hard work. It was 1961, and we needed the Cheyenne Mountain Complex for NORAD. Really interesting when you look at what we're informed was the stated capabilities of nuclear weapons, because Cheyenne Mountain was to survive a nuclear strike. So interesting image here. We've got some more. What do you think of this one? And look at some of the rock face around here. Isn't this intriguing? Now, of course, everybody recognizes the structure here. But what do you think of the rock face and what you see? Brian, lots of donkeys. Yeah, it does appear that way, doesn't it? Yeah, all those workers again, I mean, you just didn't need workers. I guess in the 60s, that was true too. Yeah, the boring machines actually melt the rock. And the thing about that is this being much more contemporary construction, yes, we could attribute it to modern technology. Now, I'm not saying I know what the answer is. I'm just saying it's interesting. And even if our civilization did build Cheyenne Mountain, which it may well have, it's intriguing to me, though, that we could do this or somebody could do this. And Ishko, the question is, if something is actually good for mankind, is there a need to hide it underground unless there's great danger? Great point. Why do we always have to hide things? Vaughn says machined, not dug. Yes, that seems very true. And Ham Walter shares it's a solid granite mountain. There's actually some more elements to it. So, and then Sky Sage says it looks like a train station. Yeah, it's a good analogy. And Lid shares, unless the ant people want to save us down there. Yeah, it is interesting. It is interesting when you think about all these little details because they all matter. So here's the layout of Cheyenne Mountain, from above. And you can see the south portal, the north portal. Funny, they even call those portals. Why wouldn't they? South access tunnel, the exhaust tunnel, and then the reservoirs, and then the main complex. So simple layout. And here's another image of Cheyenne Mountain from back in the day. So yeah, it's a mountain. And again, it's an account of tunnels being in the mountains, and whoever built them, if we built them or, United States military built them, fine. But it's an account, again, of having a complex in a mountain. And this is probably one of the main entryways people are more familiar with, where you drive vehicles in. But again, you can kind of see the structure within the rock. Isn't that interesting? Giant structures. So why do that? Well, because it's more structurally sound, of course. Okay, maybe. What do you think? Hey, Inferno, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Maxwell Smart shares, my grandma built that. Really? Well, let's get on something, Maxwell. That's not the secret thing to say to convince me that something was built by us, but good try. Jamie, what is the native lore associated with the mountain? I'm going to have to look into that. But there are some more details with the mountain, oddly enough. And there's this little tribute on top of it to Will Rogers, of all people. Yeah, apparently on top of Cheyenne Mountain, they built a little castle and a wall complete with parapets because, that's how you need to acknowledge Will Rogers. By the way, does anybody know who Will Rogers is, or was, I should say? Oh, and guess when they built this? You'll never guess when they built this monument. I'll let you in on something. They did build it before the Cheyenne Mountain NORAD complex. But when would they have built it? When would it have made the most sense? And DeWitt says, who the hell is Rogers? Okay, well, who is Will Rogers? I guess I'll just give you the official definition of Will Rogers. I'll give you a hint, though. He did actually attend a school where I was interested in doing an exploration. So he was an actor and basically a comedian. And he was born as a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. Very intriguing individual. So I'm going to have to do an exploration on him just in general because he's quite an interesting individual with his background and everything he was involved with. So Mr. Rogers' dad. Yeah, that would make sense, wouldn't it? Yeah, Heidi summarizes it nicely. Just a comedian guy. But yeah, they built this all for him. I'm not going to say your name 3 times. Yes, this is live. Thanks for joining us. Inferno, not as cool as Roy Rogers. Hey, Jennifer, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. And thanks for joining us. Anyways, so here's a more contemporary picture of the Will Rogers Shrine, as they call it. They built this in 1937 because when else would it be? When we're in the middle of a Great Depression. Oh, we weren't just in the middle of the Great Depression in 1937. We were also in a recession in the middle of the Great Depression. People don't talk about that too much because remember, President Roosevelt was in office. And President Roosevelt, as I've said, the Roosevelts are only associated with policy successes in the United States. Don't forget that. Roosevelts only succeed. And whether it's Teddy, Franklin, Kermit, or whoever, they only succeed. What do you think of this? This tower built in 1937 on top of Cheyenne Mountain, the Will Rogers Shrine. This is definitely something that's added to my list. Yeah, founded or built. Good question there, Mullet Rider. Very good question. Hey, New West Reset. Thanks for joining us. Fairy Girl says, yeah, 1937. Got to put people to work. So what if you're low on funds? Yeah, I'm with you, Total Tendies. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And May says, Old Tartaria. It definitely has that appearance, doesn't it? And Ishko, suspicious in any case. I agree. Very interesting. I was not aware that this was on Cheyenne Mountain. I was a little surprised. Troy says, looks like Sauron lives there. Yeah, Sauron's tower on top of Cheyenne Mountain. But let's just step back and think about this. Heidi says suspicious, and I agree. We have this tower that's clearly and gives the impression of being an old world structure. It might not be. I mean, I'm not going to give the final evaluation on it unless I go there in person and evaluate the construction material. But it gives the hallmarks of being an old world structure. It's on top of Cheyenne Mountain. They say it was constructed before they built the NORAD complex in Cheyenne Mountain. So is it possible this was some sort of marker? Is it possible this was all some sort of gigantic city overall? Perhaps looking like what we explored earlier with the Hive City. I don't know, but it's very intriguing. And it's all quite a coincidence. Oh, yes, and if you need anything more, the Will Rogers Shrine of the Sun. Oh, it looks like they got a couple nice lions out in front of there, because why not? And I bet if we looked on the inside, maybe we'll find some owls and some griffins. What do you think? Yep, I'm laughing again. And guess what? I'm going to laugh when I want to laugh. And Liz says, top of a city, yes. And what a way to mark a top of a city, right? With a nice, beautiful tower like that. Yeah, and Troy, a lot of people didn't know about this tower. And it's very intriguing. And what's this? Liz, why Will Rogers? Why not my grandma? Good point. Grandma deserve, all of our grandmas deserve a nice monument like this. Great point. And Vaughn, yes, because you need a lion. You bet. Let's take a closer look at those lions. Yeah, I definitely need to get on site here. It looks like we got some plaques on it. Of course we do. Next thing you know, you'll find out it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, right? Because that all makes sense too. A UNESCO World Heritage Site on top of Cheyenne Mountain. Yeah, it does give some of the more detailed construction images here. But again, I'm just looking at an image. I don't know for sure. Old Glory up there with the flag of the state of Colorado. And the steps too. So very interesting. And then here, this is apparently a 1937 aerial image, so we're informed, of Cheyenne Mountain. Yeah, isn't this interesting right here? So again, it goes back to what's in the mountain, what's under the mountain. Not really sure. And Sarah with an H says, the lions look very similar to Chinese dragons. Yes, they do, don't they? It's a coincidence, I'm sure. Dallas says 99.999% weapons grade bolognium. Yes, we all have our degrees in the University of Bologna, don't we? And Didi Anoda too asks, have you ever investigated a hotel in Glenwood Springs, Colorado? Yes, actually I have, and that tower does look similar. To be honest with you, though, it looks very similar to a lot of other random towers I just see. It also looks similar to that castle up in La Crosse, Wisconsin, one of the first explorations I did. So you see it a lot. Comes up quite a bit. Anyway, so that's it for Cheyenne Mountain. So yeah, if you're in Colorado, check that out. Okay, let's see if I can switch around here without causing issues. So we're going to pull up another underground military complex you may be familiar with. And if you played the Fallout game, you'll be very familiar with it. Share screen. Let's hope it doesn't stop it. And okay. Can you see this? Not glitching, so that's good. Uh-oh. Looks like it's glitching again. And Queen says, many structures were here already. Huge buildings they incorporated into prisons. Great, great observation there, Queen Peachy. You are right. It does look like those prisons. It actually kind of also, the material reminds me of the prison at Anamosa, Iowa that we explored last year. So, and Lawrence asks, which Fallout? 3? Yes, it was in 3. This is Raven Rock in the great state of Pennsylvania. So again, oh, thanks, my bailiwick zone. So a little wiggy on the audio. Okay. I'm going to pop out real quick and come right back in, fix the audio. Be right back. Don't go away. Okay, I'm back. Let's get those images back up. Hopefully you can hear me all right now. All right. There we go. Everybody see Raven Rock, the diagram of it. Yeah, isn't that funny, Chassis? You know what? That's why I'm not so into numbers, so don't worry about it. So, and Sky Sage says looks like the Pyramid of Giza. Yes. Oh, thanks, Chassis. That helps. And thanks, Lorraine. Appreciate that. So anyway, featured in Fallout series, it was originally constructed in the 50s as the survival bunker for the United States government, namely the Pentagon. It was their alternate location. Here's the construction, I guess you can call it that. Yeah, it looks pretty messy, but you know, construction is messy. I'm not saying it doesn't. No image, black screen, bad audio. Okay. All right. Hold on. I'll try again. Not giving up. Okay. Here we go. All right. Can everybody see and hear? Maybe tie a bandana or just throw a small towel over your mic. Yeah, I don't know what's going on tonight. It's pretty crazy. Nope, still can't see it, huh? Okay, you can see. I'm going to go on and do the best that I can. Might be just be my location. I'm not really sure. I'm glad we got this far. Okay, well, we're going to move on. So Raven Rock. And here you actually have the full diagram of Raven Rock. So you can see this is another extensive compound, you know, tunnel to Camp David. So as if you need to know where this is. Command Center, Presidential Suite. So again, another example of an underground military base. Hey, don't worry. I don't know how to quit. Maybe somebody will figure that out. Well, thanks, Sarah. I appreciate that. And Al here asks, where is the entrance? So they've got two entrances. They got the A portal. So again, calling these portals, how intriguing. B portal. So the A portal, B portal, C portal, D portal. And that's how you get into it. And isn't this an intriguing image? So again, we're seeing like this rib work here inside Raven Rock. So very, very interesting. Albie says, May, I think he knows things we don't. Me? No, I'm not holding anything back. I'm just sharing all that I can. Thanks, my bailiwick zone. I appreciate that. Brian asks, is Raven Rock still operational? Absolutely. I mean, you know, the United States could face a nuclear strike at any time. I mean, where would everybody go? They need to have Raven Rock. It's operational. Absolutely. So anyway, just a couple images of Raven Rock. Okay. So I'm going to try transitioning now. We're going to go to old cities infrastructure. Hopefully it holds out because it always seems to go nutty when I try to switch images. And this might be a little surprising for a lot of you. Share screen, and here we go. So from Boston here, well, first I'll make sure everybody see this. And can everybody still hear me? Because I'm having issues when I switch images. So. Alex, how can so many secrets be kept? Yeah, good question. Misinformation, misdirection, and then calling anybody who questions anything stupid, it's very effective. So. And here we go. Audio jack again. Okay, hold on. Okay, I'm back on. Get the images back up. Yes, Chassis, I am on location somewhere, so. All right, can everybody see this now, and can you hear me all right? Okay, thanks, Julia, much better. All right, we're going to move on. So anyway, in all these sewer complexes, and there's many of them, then that's what we're looking at. We're looking at sewers here. When were these sewers constructed? And what are they really referencing, or what are they showing? And who built all these sewers? And you might be surprised to know how intricate the sewers are. Why does the disposal of waste have to be so intricate? Well, you know, it's well documented that the disposal of waste needs to be done with something that's very architecturally superior and very difficult to build, especially before we had large-scale excavators. Yes. Heather, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. A long time ago. Albie says a lot of people hate sewers. Yeah, they do, don't they? Tracy says the Dragoons built it. Yeah, maybe. But what's interesting about sewers is they're under every city, every town. Have you ever seen a sewer that's looked like this, though? Just this very intricate and elaborate brick structure that you could just walk right on down. Why exactly do you need something this complex for a sewer? And think about how it compares to the complexes we looked at earlier. Jamie says the stuff beneath New York, ever so true. Oh, EP65, part of the energy system. Yeah, may well be. Or part of the old infrastructure. You know, remember when we looked at hive cities, you had the underhive that was still technically part of the city. So, looks like a fuel line, says Vaughn. Yeah, I agree. It does. Heidi says nice brickwork. Yeah, I agree with that completely. Looks like MC Escherdrein says, Queen, where'd you find these pics? I've got my methods. I've got quite an extensive library. I just save everything that looks interesting and catalog it appropriately. Yeah, there aren't any rats there, are there? Oh, Isabella here. Could it have been a pneumatic tube? Pneumatic tube. I don't know. Maybe. Very interesting, isn't it? Oh, here's a good comment from Reseister. I'm pronouncing that properly. They had total control of water. Yeah, maybe if they had control of sound, they would definitely have control of water. So, hey, Adam Baum, good to see you, brother. Oh, you know, just technical difficulties and all, but yeah, you've missed quite a bit, but that's okay. It's recorded. Technical difficulties and all. And Texas Redneck Hippie says hydraulic systems. Yeah, I agree. Let's look at some more. So it's really impressive when you think about some of these sewers. And no, I'm not saying I want to go dipping and diving and exploring sewers, but it's interesting when you see how well constructed they really are and how many examples there are. Like, look at this one. Very intricate. All these blocks and bricks. And, you know, this is an actual sewer. It's considered an ancient sewer. But who is building elaborate, complex sewers like this? Was this something else from the so-called Middle Ages that we didn't know about? It actually kept the good people of Italy healthy, and that's how they were able to build that impressive cathedral in Florence. But then the rest of Europe just lived in squalor and filth. I don't know. I mean, it's amazing the things they tell us. And yes, you'll find this anywhere in the land. You know, China, United States, United Kingdom, all over Europe. Africa, you'll see sewers like this. You'll definitely see them in the Middle East. I can remember earlier phase of my life poking around sewers there, but, you know, we'll talk about that some other time. But I mean, just look at this elaborate structure and all these blocks that went into this. Hector references the Las Vegas sewer system, and that's an interesting one given that you're right in the Mojave there. So, Fairy Girl says the old world was connected back then. They weren't used as sewers. I would agree. I doubt they were used as sewers. So were they really, we think of them as infrastructure, but that's what we're informed that they are. But could they have had another use? Adam Baum says, looks like a Disney ride. Yeah, I guess it kind of does, doesn't it? So anyway, moving on. Look at this one. I mean, here you've got one that's actually turning. And I mean, look at the curvature in this. Very, very impressive. the way this block and brickwork fits together. And I mean, are these bricks? Are these blocks? Looks like we kind of got both. It's hard to tell, but just the intricacy of this. And again, you've got this under every city, every town, an underground. That's what's impressive about it. The underworld, if you will. And we don't realize this is exactly what's under our feet right now, wherever we are. Inferno says Brown Water Rapids. Yeah, I guess that's very true. Sheepdog, Willy Wonka boat trip. Yes, that's what they were missing. Sissy May, beautiful. I agree, especially the layout of it. Jamie Griffin, I think you're quoting or you're referencing H.R. Giger there, aren't you? Yeah, he's always got interesting artwork and things to do, doesn't he? Vaughn, old star forts, I'm guessing. Yeah, very likely. EP65, yeah, I would say they're corridors. And maybe that's what they did. You know, they connected together the structures of one of the earlier eras. That's what I'm thinking. And Sky Sage, definitely underground canals. Yeah, without any doubt. Without any doubt. And here's another one. Not exactly the best image, but again, it gives you that impression of how extensive it all is. And then this one. And I mean, look at this. And here you actually have full out blocks. And of course, why do you need to do this? What's the point of this? It's a sewer. Makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, no, I'm thinking it's corridor for whatever reason, but yeah. Oh, it's a sewer. Sure. Yeah, exactly. EP65 built to last. You got it. I agree. And D, great question here. I wonder if there's any structures beneath them or connected that only certain people know about. Who knows? I mean, the possibilities are infinite. I mean, you think about it. We've got an example of a gold mine that's 2 miles underground. We've got an example of an entire subtropolis complex in Kansas City that's 100 feet underground. So anyway. Yeah, exactly. Not a sewer. These are different images. Some are from Europe. Some are from the United States. I didn't catalog exactly where they are, but maybe what I'll do is some of the more dramatic ones, I'll put them up on the community section on the channel page. So, but they're all over the place. I mean, you can find sewers like this everywhere, oddly enough. So, Sarah, arches offer structure so it doesn't collapse. Good point. Good structural observation there. Hey, KC. Well, we already covered Subtropolis, but that's okay. It's recorded, so I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Brian, I've known actual treasure hunters before, 2 of them. Yeah, you can find valuable stuff there. Oh, no doubt about it. And the materials alone. So here's another one, and here you're seeing more of the classic brickwork, and I guess we've got the water going down here. Now, if you want to know what prompted this in my mind, I was actually watching the original version of Les Miserables from the 1970s with, of course, Richard Jordan, who seems to pop up into everything, as Jean Valjean, and he's facing off against Anthony Perkins. And I remember when he makes his escape through the sewer, I thought, wow, that was an amazing complex sewer under the city. Or as my dad called the play or the musical in the movie, Les Miserables. But in any event, it just got me thinking about this infrastructure, as we're told it is, that's under our feet everywhere, and how elaborately constructed it is. And it doesn't matter whether it's Paris, London, Boston, or some random small town in the middle of the Midwest United States. They all have structures like this that are under our feet. So it's very impressive, I think. Officer, once you consider it all, compare it with what they're achieving today, it's destruction. Yeah, very true. I would agree with that. Oh yeah, and definitely appreciate the comments. Lots of good ones here. And then Lawrence, the Les Miserables show is really good. I do recommend seeing it live if you can. There are old vibes in that. But then again, some contemporary vibes in it too. A little bit of both, so not surprising, I should think. So here's another one of these. You know, so again, how old is this? When was this really built, and who built this? Now, someone had requested an aqueduct exploration, and yes, we will be getting to aqueducts here in the near future. Yeah, I'm sure this is how they built the sewer, you know, in the mud with a couple horse-drawn carts. I just thought that was a funny way to end it. Anyway, please hit that like button. We've got one final section to do. So I'm not going to go on break. I'm just going to get through it since we've had some technical intricacies in this particular exploration. So please hit that like button. And we're going to go to our last section, underground cities. So we'll see how this goes. I might have to log out and log in. Just be prepared. And here we go. Share screen. Okay, let's make sure we're together. Hey, well, thanks for joining us. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody see this image? Says, you betcha, with the wax versus. Yeah. There we go. Click again. Okay, so it's one try to put up new images. Okay, logging out and logging in. Be right back. Okay, let's see if we can get it going again. All right, can everybody see that one? Okay, it's clear. And up here, served 400 people dinner in a sewer. What a surprise. And sandwiches again. I'm gonna go fair. Just the next one I had. I'll try one. I think I'm gonna go to our file images. We've got deer and coo here, so it's just crazy. All right, right back. Hold on. Okay, can everybody hear me? Let's make sure we got audio first. All right. Here we go. Present image. All right. Can everybody hear me and see this? Good audio, and can you see the image? Thanks, Jay. I appreciate that. Without monitoring how long it would take to dig these tunnels. Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things that doesn't make any sense. And nobody can see the image. Go figure, huh? I'll turn bad to share the image. Yeah. Okay. No visual, no images. So it's not letting me share the images. That's very interesting. Okay. All right, Vaughn says all good now. Okay. Well, I'm going to try to plow through. So yes, these are the tunnels of Girinkuyu, or the underground cities, if you will. And I explored this last year, and I had some troubles with this exploration when I did it. Now this is actually in Poland. It's a salt mine in Poland, and it's underground. And look how intricate this is. Oh yes, they just have an entire shrine and an altar underground as well. You can visit this in Poland to this day. I know I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. It's near Krakow, or it's actually in Krakow, in Poland. You can visit the salt mine there. The Waliszka. I know I'm not pronouncing it right, so I didn't check the pronunciation of it, okay? Just trying to let you see all this. Yep, you got it. Krakow. Lori, I've had many interferences throughout my life. I'm used to it, so. Ah, so you're very well familiar with this. Yeah, it's very, very interesting, isn't it? We'll take a look at a few more. And maybe you've seen this, an example of a literal city that's in the ground. And I'll get this one posted. I'm sure you can guess where this is. I have a feeling who knows where this is. And the audio's breaking up. Yeah, whenever I try to feature these things just really go bad. Mm-mm. Okay. Well, I've got to go to the final images here and try starting one more time and see if you can see them. So I will be right back. There you go. Just Google the correct salt mines and go to images. So. Okay. Can everybody hear me all right, at least now, if I stop sharing the images? Arisha here. What if they weren't originally underground but buried? Yeah, very possible they were buried. That's so very true. Okay, so everybody can hear me all right. All right. I'm going to hold off on images right now, and we'll just go through the last talking point here. Hey, QCZ, good to see you. So please accept my apologies for the difficulty with the images. It could be that, yeah, I'm actually broadcasting from the underground. I'm kidding. I'm not. So I think it's just something, could just be a coincidence or could be difficulty with whatever. So anyway, yeah, it's a weird glitch. It's happened once or twice in previous live streams. So it's been an odd week. Anyways, really getting at this with the underground and going back to the underground cities. You looked at the images from the intro. We've got a lot of different examples of these places that are everywhere. Fairy girl broadcasting from Asgard. Not quite, but maybe one day. So Jamie says, you've been very naughty. Yeah, actually I have. I've pushed it with a couple explorations these last 2 weeks. So anyways, but I'm gonna get some of these images up on the community page and make sure that they're good to go. But what I want you to keep in mind with the whole concept of the underground is the fact that it does allude to underground cities. It is one of the roots of where I get the 5 eras theory from. So anyways, Jamie, yeah, no doubt about it. And Brian, I think it's all within conventional boundaries. Maybe. PJCC West, interference from Shilood. And QCZ says, odd week, odd year, odd decade, odd century. Yeah, no doubt about it. Yes, Heather, we're going to be talking about the ant people. I'll be exploring that here very soon. So we'll make sure we have a good connection for that. That may be a live stream. I might do that as just a regular exploration, so we'll see. But anyways, so I hope you enjoyed this exploration of underworld and underground. I'm going to try showing one last series of images. And if that doesn't work out, then we'll call it a live stream. So let's see if this works. Oh, thanks, Isabella. I appreciate that. So anyways, let's see if this works. Okay, here we go. Sharing screen. Hold on. Okay. Can everybody see this? Please tell me you can. It's getting glitchy again. Or can you hear me? Nope. Go figure. Oh, I'm getting yeses now. Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, this is one of the concepts of what an underground city may look like. Thank goodness, because these are the most dramatic images. So they've apparently thought about this idea of having underground cities, beneath the cities and powered by various points. Although how far did they get with it? Nobody knows. Oh, love that Coca-Cola right there. Here's another more complete image of it. So you can see that it would also include subterranean compounds as well. And so again, maybe looking like what we saw earlier with Subtropolis. And then the city itself. But quite a diagram. I mean, did you know that this was actually diagrammed and thought out in the past? Marine, City of Ember. Yeah, it does look like that, doesn't it? On those who shut us down fear us. Very true. That's why we keep going. Hey, easy, and well, you made it. We just got past it, so. Anyways, take a look at a couple other examples, but just think of this, an example of an underground city that's powered, it's facilitated, everything. And then some of the dramatic images, so what really could be down there? You ask the question, could there be more advanced cities that are further under the land? Absolutely. And maybe they look like this or something like this. Things that just completely blow our imagination. And maybe they're still there just waiting to be found, or maybe somebody knows about them. I always found this one interesting where you have the two individuals on chains here. What's this representing? You have more angelic figures here. Just so many different concepts behind it that could be representing so many different things. And then here you see it with how it could have gone bad at a point in time. Was there erosion? Did it fall apart? As Underground World's Fair. Yeah, it does look like that, doesn't it? So. And Big AB, Fraggle Rock. Yeah, I agree with that. So. Jamie says would come as no surprise. Yeah, I agree completely. And then, of course, this last one, showing you a bit of a mix of a castle and the domes and everything. So who knows what's really under there? And then there's other images that they released from their excavation. And again, it kind of gives you conflicting account because look at this figure. And again, you can see the eyes on this figure, but just strange details. And again, I'm not going to tell you what to make out of it, but it's really interesting because it doesn't look like all the other figures that we have that are attributed to the artwork of the Roman time period, does it? There are some subtle differences and some unique nuances that you can see. And so that's why I wonder, where exactly are we? Are we directly under the Basilica of St. Peter? Or is it something else? And they say this is the tomb of St. Peter. He was actually found, and they did verify it later. Pius XII didn't, but Paul VI did, the subsequent pope in the 60s. So really, what to make of it? Petty Lee looks like he's missing headphones. Yeah, that's not all. Julia, that looks oddly like a 20th century still life. Yes, it does, doesn't it? Vaughn is going out and saying it's somewhere else. And that's what I don't wonder on this. Because here's the thing, you have a lot of catacombs under Rome. And don't worry, we're going to be looking at them. Legendary Egghead. Yeah, I could see that. Robert Iacco, someone's old house. Yeah, maybe. Ooh, RB, human hybrid. I don't wonder. And that's kind of the thing that we look at and we see with this. The mystery behind it. Where exactly is this? Now, is there not some very interesting imagery that we have here? What do we have here? And nobody better say the current star on the Minnesota state flag. Okay, that's not funny. But apparently this is another portion of the necropolis. And yet you can see there's a lot more fine detailed construction within this. Now I really wish we could have gotten this colorized because I'd be very interested to see what kind of coloring we have to these structures. And what is this really? In a black and white photo, you're kind of left to guess. Although even if it was colorized, I'd still be left guessing. But you get the impression there's a lot more opulence and detail we're just not seeing in this. I mean, what is this figure right here? Sky Sage, definitely a crypt. Oh, RB, looks like the elevator in your favorite building. Yeah, there are a lot of overlapping symbols, aren't there? And isn't it funny how the true story behind St. Peter's might be the same true story behind my favorite building, right? Trey's the Morning Star. Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, this is the layout that they've done. And here you can actually see where the original racing track was for the horses. And right next to where St. Peter was killed, and apparently he was buried right where he was killed, at least that's what the account says, or very close to it. And so this was the original racetrack, and then they built St. Peter's over here. Now, who knows about any of the veracity of this? Because if you go to Rome, yes, it's very true. There are layers upon layers built on top of layers. So It's possible. I'm not saying it's not. I'm never going to say that the official account is impossible. It's just very unlikely. And for whatever reason, it comes up as very unlikely when you look at this. Who is this figure supposed to be? This is supposed to be a mosaic of St. Peter himself, but at this point, this could really be anybody. St. Peter, Mel Gibson, or somebody with very bushy, dark eyebrows. Could even be David Strathairn for all you know. But I just have no idea. But these are the kind of things that they'll attribute to these details, and they just don't know what's going on. Philip I, president of Rome. Yeah, why not? Jamie, it's all snake and mirrors. Could be Abe Lincoln. Yeah, why not? There was that time he went to Rome. Albie Belt, that is Peter. And it could be Peter. It's just hard to tell who it may be. You don't have the detail in it. They say it's Peter. And then here you can actually see another comparison. Now this is a diagram. This isn't the map, but this diagram is more accurate, although how they tell that I don't know. Where you have the Circus of Nero, as the track was originally called, and then you have the layout of where St. Peter's Basilica is, and where you've got St. Peter's tomb currently. And then they even indicate that tombs were destroyed by Elagabalus. Yeah, I don't really care for that name. I got into a lot of arguments about Elagabalus when I was still teaching, so it's kind of funny. Namely, what evidence do we have? Never mind, I'm not going to go into it. It distracts. But here's the best part. So they say the obelisk that they brought from Egypt was originally here in the middle of the racetrack, or the Circus of Nero. And then, they moved it way out in front of St. Peter's Basilica. Because, why not? Moving an obelisk, that's an easy thing. Especially one from Egypt that you apparently dug out of the ground. And that's the official account on that. Now, you also have this other oddity where you have Pope Pius XI, the predecessor to Pope Pius XII, and he's actually buried right underneath in this necropolis himself. And this is actually his crypt. And isn't this interesting? What do we have here on the crypt? Are these eagles? Odd. Since when was the Roman Catholic Church into eagles? Very strange, don't you think? I think the Roman Empire was Prussian and Celtic. Well, at this rate, it may as well be. Yeah, it does have a bit of a creepy vibe to it, doesn't it, Donna? Ah, Petty's on it again. More griffins. I don't wonder. Dane, Pizza the Hut. Yeah, look far enough, you might find his crypt, too. Well, you always need to have chains there to make sure nobody actually goes up and touches it. So you got your retention chain right there. So, again, who really knows what's going on with all this? And here you can see some of the mosaics, and these mosaics look a little bit closer to what we may expect to see, but some of the rest of these, I just don't know. Definitely something we're going to have to take a look at. And yet then you have other accounts of even more well-adorned, decorated, and opulent rooms that are technically in the necropolis. So this isn't on the main floor of St. Peter's, this is below it. And this is probably what you'd expect to see. Something that actually has a foundation that can really hold up that structure. And again, look at some of the finery and the detail here. Ah, yes, of course. And these are not the easiest of images to come by. I'll just let you know that. NPC, similar to a circuit board, a mystery machine. Yeah, it does give that feeling, doesn't it? And Scott, feeling grand yet dark. Does look like it's all gold, doesn't it? And not painted gold either. But remember, as we learned, it's cheaper to use real gold than to paint things gold. Yes, they've actually said that. New West Reset. St. Peter sure has a nice basement. Fancy. Yeah, now that's a basement you think you could live in, right? All right, I think we are just about through the necropolis. So you go from this, then to this, which is also part of the official necropolis. Clearly, this is supposed to be in the lower levels, although who knows for sure. And you have an odd assortment of images here. Again, is this reflecting the actual Roman history, or is this something else? The deeper you dig, the stranger things you find, right? And what is going on with the ceiling up here? We actually have figures here in the pillars, if that's what you want to call these decorative pillars. I don't know. This almost reminds me of that scene from Beneath the Planet of the Apes when Brent and Nova went down there and they encountered the remaining humans. Or the mutant humans. Not one of the better Planet of the Apes movies, but you know what? I still prefer it over any of the modern ones. But that's just me, okay? That's just me. Statues of dead people. Yeah, maybe. Who knows for sure. All right. Well, that's it for the images of what is officially St. Peter's Basilica and the necropolis underneath it. But we have more things we're going to be looking at. And we're going to be looking at the catacombs of Rome, because remember, we have an entire city there. Ooh, Trays, that's a good one, yeah. The ceiling does look like wet concrete, doesn't it? The notorious Mr. D. Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes was a good attempt. Yeah, Tim Burton probably would have been better suited just to demand writing the screenplay himself. Just my opinion. But yes, agreed. Donna Marie, in a Roman bathhouse in the United Kingdom, they found some of the purple. Very intoxicating. That would be a jamming spot. Yeah, and it's interesting what they find and where. Oh, thanks, RB. I appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to go on a quick break, 2-minute break, and we're going to transition to look at the catacombs of Rome. So this is the last image of the official necropolis below St. Peter's. But prior to going on break, let me get up one of those images of the catacombs of Rome. And it probably will suit your expectations. And it's a little creepy, so it's not too bad. You know, I've shown creepier images. But when you look at this, and we'll just lead this off before we go on break, I want you to really look at these catacombs, and these are the official catacombs. Now, it doesn't really matter which one, because does anybody know how many catacombs they have around Rome? There's quite a few. We'll just look at a couple examples. But think about how much trouble, Philippi, sleeping bunks. It's actually what it looks like more than catacombs, doesn't it? Think about how much trouble they went through before they could actually be prepared to use these catacombs. Something is missing, the organ machine. Actually, it's funny you say that. Funny and disturbing at the same time, because we do have images that tell us a little bit differently. Kathy. Looks like a rib cage. All right, well, prior to going on break, here's a thought I'm going to leave you with. And that is, there was actually a movie that we talked about quite recently, and I think I talked about it in one of the more recent explorations, that used these catacombs as an inspiration to design the interior of something. So we'll go on break, and we'll see you in 2 minutes. And before we go on break, just be sure you hit that like button and support the channel. And I appreciate everyone being here. And we're really getting to it. So we're going to look at the catacombs of Rome. Then we're going to look at the secret archives of the Vatican. And then we're going to talk about the theories that we have. So hit that like button. We'll go on a 2-minute break. I'll put on the Monty Python music for you, and we'll go to the catacombs. And we're going to be taking a look at the catacombs of Rome. Now, this is where we start to get into the difficult area. And what I told you to talk or think about while I was gone is, what film did this inspire? Well, there's a statement that the set designer and the visualist for the film Fire in the Sky, that was an alien abduction movie from 1993, D.B. Sweeney and Robert Patrick back in the day. Ah, yes, a lot of people forgot about D.B. Sweeney. Anyway, they designed the entire interior of the alien ship. It was based on the inspiration of these catacombs. And you might recall, if you've seen that movie, some rather terrible things happened during that abduction scene. Now, I can't recommend the movie because the rest of it tended to be a little bit of a disrupted waste of time, but the alien abduction scene and then the scene on the ship was really good. So watch it for that, if nothing else. Now, this is what we'd expect to see with catacombs. At least this is what's put in our mind. But I want to ask you, how much trouble would somebody have to go to? How much logistical trouble to actually dig out these catacombs? First to dig out the tunnels, but then to dig out each of the so-called burial chambers. Why would anybody do something like that? Yeah. Jamie summarizes it very nicely. It was terrifying. Oh, and thanks for that, New West Reset, and welcome to the new members. I appreciate that. Brendan Wood, they look like body-length shelves. Yeah, they do, don't they? But then you have certain images from lost works such as this. Now, you don't necessarily need to speak Italian or Latin to translate this. Subterranean Rome. But what they show here are a couple people that are actually being taken and put into these chambers. At least that's what this image shows you. But is that what's really happening here? Are they really handling the dead? There's some very disturbing things when you look into the details on this as well. Because what exactly is this representing here? On the right and on the left? I mean, is there something much more morbid going on than initially meets the eye? Something much more morbid than death and dealing with the dead? You know, when you look at some of the details in these images, they always seem to paint different pictures than what we might expect. Ah, I think we have a fascist there. Why not? So what do you think is going on? What do you think these tombs, these catacombs really represent? Can we get details from this image? What does it point to? RB, being cooked and eaten. Yeah, maybe. And maybe in a way we don't understand. Sky Sage, wizards in robes. Yeah, you see a lot of that too. Jamie Griffin, yeah, bring out your dead. And remember what that scene was famous for. I'm not dead yet. Okay, well, I'm not going to hesitate. So you have all these shelves, and then you have this drawing that shows you what's happening to people who may or may not be dead. Yes, who knows for sure. It's very disturbing what may be going on here. But then, of course, in these catacombs, yes, you have it. Your classic death shrine. The death shrine. In other words, our trophy. Because why else would somebody arrange all these skulls and all these bones? And as if it's not enough that they went to all the trouble to dig out these tunnels, dig out each of these crypts, at least that's what we're told they are, then they went to the trouble of removing all the remaining flesh from these bodies and then nicely stacking these bones. Now, how much effort and time went into that? And why would anybody bother with that, first and foremost? I am Cairo, stripped, dried, and clean. Ooh, piezoelectric bone power plant. Yeah, that's one explanation. And there's a lot of evidence that supports that, too. Or it could be a much darker explanation for all we know. Polly Dibs, I'm sure they had a lot of time down there. And so there's a couple different theories. We'll get to it. Christy, it's a big trophy room. Yeah, that's kind of the feeling you get when you look at it. And so this is why you really don't have to dive around with any theories. It's right here for all to see. I mean, the bones are still there. They didn't even move the bones. And you've got other images where you have some more morbid depictions of the bones. I mean, who does this? We're supposed to respect and venerate the dead. Does this look like it's respecting and venerating the dead? No, it looks like it's quite the opposite of that. And then you have these other odd images here and these other odd statues or sculptures or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, sure, somebody carved that. Okay, if you say so. And what the heck is this representing? And this is from one of the catacombs below Rome. I mean, this is just really strange when you look at this. You get all these images and these ideas of horrific suffering. Yeah, Day of the Dead is right. RB, that's one crazy art project. Yeah, I mean, who would even put their time into doing something like that? Oh, Robert, fear and torture. And this goes back to the theory of these underground catacombs actually being part of a massive orchestrated trap happening right before the reset as a way to get a lot of people out of the way. That may have been one thing that happened, or it could have been something like you see with the vaults in the Fallout series. Of course, I'm referring to the gaming series because that's the series that came up with the idea, at least maybe. And they brought the people down here and they thought they were going to be safe from whatever was coming, and they were anything but safe. They did things to them. Whether that was experimentation, whether that was killing, who knows? You know, a lot of different possibilities may have happened. But the bones are all still there. The bones are there. They're arranged in this very disturbing way. And then you have these statues that show suffering. So this really starts to overlap quickly. There's really no conspiracy here unless you're trying to come up with a conspiracy theory to explain why you have all these things in the same place. Well, we got bones, we got pictures of suffering, we got statues of suffering, but I don't think it was suffering. I think it was just a catacomb where they buried people. Okay. Yeah. Now who's reaching, right? Hey, Jay, good to see you. Yeah, probably a lot of both, no doubt about it. Well, and yeah, Mr. Something Else, I'm always reminded of that episode Clues from Star Trek The Next Generation where Data has been ordered to lie and he's trying to come up with explanations and it always feels like he's reaching. So that's what this seems like. Yeah, Rod Tack. I mean, billions, who knows? It might even be more than that with the skulls and the skeletons and the pieces of skeletons. And here you can see the rest of that image, and this is where this really gets horrific. I mean, who even does something like this? And we have seen this in other locations before, the so-called ossuaries. And no, I don't think they filmed any scenes from Dungeons and Dragons here. So no Jeremy Irons hamming it up. I mean, when you go back and you watch that movie, and I'll just call it as it is, that wasn't exactly the best of movies. The best reason to watch it is Jeremy Irons hamming it up. But think about this. He's actually filming this scene in front of these real bones. And here we are in Rome, and I mean, what's with this skeleton up here over this? What is this really showing? In a catacomb. Oh, Paulie with a good comment there. Almost a symbolic hell underneath a symbolic heaven. Yeah, maybe. Or perhaps a corruption of it even, if you will. Yes, a corruption of heaven. Imagine that. And Cynthia Wood, they've been harvesting us for thousands of years. Well, could definitely get that impression from this image. There's no doubt about it. Oh, Jamie, Demiurge worship. That could well be too. Oh, TL Spud, as above, so below. So all the symbolism is right here for us to see. I mean, there's no two ways about it. And this is how they have some of these catacombs marked. And I mean, up on the surface, it seems very innocuous, very innocent. Like, oh, catacomb, let's go take a look. And then you get down there. Yeah, lots of bones, lots of statues and suffering. Maybe it's not so much fun. I don't know. Now, you can also get an idea of some of the other layouts of these catacombs, and this is closer to the surface, apparently, for access. But then you still have the arches. You still have the fine geometric precision. It's just made out of bricks. It also looks like the, wait for it, Aurelian walls. They're made the same way. And you'll notice that. But then you, again, have the very odd artwork in these catacombs. I mean, what the heck is this showing? Superman trying to escape some nasty dragon that's biting him on the butt? I mean, I don't know. And there's all kinds of odd artwork like that. Yeah, lovely, lovely catacombs. That's right. I am Kairos. Brixels again. Well, yeah, you can never have enough of those. Paulie, any theories or claims about how these tunnels were even built? Nah, they just say that they dug them out over a long period of time. They had a lot of money. Ooh, Jay, Chimera. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, sadistic. Ooh, Kathy, merman. Yeah, it does kind of look like a merman, doesn't it? Lori with the best question here. How did they build all the tunnels everywhere? Great question, Lori. Don't know. Ooh, Jamie, yeah, serpents eating men. Going back to that old depiction again. And then there's even more ornate skull arrangements. Yeah, I mean, what exactly is with this? And then just all the time, and remember, these are all human bones that you're seeing here. So someone took all the time to do this. And yet, for some reason, this is also left standing. Well, we got to preserve history. If it was in the United States, it'd be on the National Register of Historic Places. Technically, no, I'm not going to say it because I'll get the video in trouble, but yeah, I think you follow where I'm going with it. Then you also have these other arrangements of bones. Crypts and catacombs of Rome. So, I mean, the first part of the exploration, we just looked at St. Peter's alone. Now we're looking at the whole city. And yeah, as I think it was Rod Tack said, how many bones are there? Millions? Billions? I mean, it really gets disturbing when you start to look at it. Chassis, I thought human bones turned to dust after so long. One would expect that, but that's not the situation that we get, is it? Barbara, it'd be a state park. Who knows? Maybe it is. Victoria, maybe it's more recent than we think. That could be too. And that's probably one of the more disturbing possibilities. Great comment there. Yeah, exactly. Maybe not as long ago. Because remember, it seems as though everyone wants us to think there's a lot of time. It's been hundreds of years, it's been thousands of years, but these bones, this might not have been so long ago. And here's another one of these interesting images here. Human being devoured by something. Giant serpent bunny rabbit. You know, maybe this is where the killer rabbit of Carbong came from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Carabong, I'm not saying that correct, but that's okay. And then some of the other images in these catacombs, and you get the hint of some of the artwork, but who knows how this has been changed. And it's a great consideration. How old is it? What's it really reflecting? Iliad, maybe 300-ish years, yeah. Well, thank you, New West Reset. I greatly appreciate that. And definitely looking forward to more of your impression on these things in the future. The Vorpal Bunny. Yeah, it sounds like a new antagonist. You know, maybe that'll be the next Doctor Who villain when Doctor Who gets brought back by Disney for another season. Who knows? Who knows? Ooh. Vaughn. Yeah, legend. That's a great film. Back when Ridley Scott really made the good films, too. Not that I'm saying he doesn't anymore. And then you have other interesting looks like this. You know what I mean? You know, this could be Rome. This could be China. I've seen these kind of layouts all over the place in catacombs and crypts. So again, who knows what this is really reflecting? You know, and maybe this is really the oldest part for all we know, but we don't know. You know, who knows what forces these have been subjected to? Oh, here you have the three fates, past, present, future, or maybe something else. Again, the strange artwork that's in these catacombs. Well, good, Sydney. I'm glad you're laughing and having a good time. I know this can be a little bit of a heavy topic, so I'm trying to lighten it up a little bit. Space Fraggle, Communion with the Dead. Yeah, no doubt about it. Lori Russell. Nope, not stacking all those. It is sad. RB, those pics of the old cities with empty streets make me wonder. You and me both. And that's where you have to ask that question, you know, where did the people go? What happened to them? Well, we may be getting a lot of clues here. Here's another one of these images from these older books. Now, these books are stated to have been composed during the Middle Ages, which, remember, they weren't such a dark period. Okay, it was just stated that. But you get the idea that these catacombs or these crypts or tombs may have been more ornate. And why do we have the impression they have a different purpose than what we're told? I mean, what the heck's going on here? Were they playing hockey? I have no idea. Really, really odd. And again, just a drawn picture, so who knows how accurate it is. But then also some of the imagery that was taken from these sarcophaguses. You know, these crypts that they had. Very, very strange. What exactly are we doing here? Just a lot of symbolism that, I mean, I'm at a complete loss to even try to speculate on. And you can look at it and try to interpret it, but, you know, what's it really mean? It's just about as alien as that ship was in Fire in the Sky. No wonder they looked to here to inspire that ship in Fire in the Sky, huh? You know, and I don't even know if the details on that match up, but it is odd to me how much it looks alike. And then you'll get some other images like this, and this does kind of match that first image that we saw from the necropolis underneath St. Peter's. But again, you know, what's this material? I have not personally been to this one, so I don't know. I mean, it looks like this was all formed and carved or cut out. Again, we have fine arches. I mean, if you look hard enough, you'll see the details. So were they eroded by something? Was this subjected to some horrifying forces that we can't fully understand? Just don't know. Yeah, Victor, you're right. That's probably exactly what they tell us it is now, is limestone. But just remember, you know, if you have a limestone retaining wall, just a small section of it that breaks, it's prohibitively expensive to replace it, even with our modern technology. Julia, original Olympics were done nude. Yeah, that's what they say. That'd have been interesting, huh? Oh, Vaughn, sarcophagus, sarcophon, coffin for a king, pharaohs. Paulie, and who was the artist that designed all this great work? Yeah, good question on that. Brendan Wood. Or nature is geometrically configured and they just use the energy to guide them. Well, thanks, Robert. I appreciate that. Yeah, this is a great one. And then here you have somebody actually looking at all these bones, skulls. Now, I've personally, full disclosure, I've only been to one ossuary and I swore never to go to one again because it was very disturbing to me. But, again, that's just me. I'm not judging people. I know a lot of people are just told, hey, these are great tourist attractions. Go look at them and enjoy yourselves. But for me, there's just something very disturbing to think that every single one of these skulls, every single one of these bones belong to a real human being. So, I don't know. It's one of those things that maybe I think about a little bit too much. But then you'll also find in what they call the private catacombs, this very odd assortment of skulls. And I mean, this is where you get the idea that a lot more suffering may have occurred. And these are probably a little bit more difficult for me to look at personally. I don't know if they're more difficult for you to look at, but I thought I'd include them because, yeah, they're part of the catacombs. And it paints a much darker picture. Wendy, creepy people are touching those bones. Yeah, that's right. And Jamie, how could you concentrate on anything with wangers flying around everywhere? Yeah. Scott Pike, only a demon would create art with human remains. Yeah, it's not something I can imagine anybody doing. You do a painting, you can do a representation, you can use clay, but to use the actual bones, yeah, I mean, it's disturbing. There's no two ways about it. And then I saved this for last with these catacombs. So you also have some of these more well-adorned skulls, skeletons, that are actually jewel encrusted. Now, what the heck is going on here? And ideas on this. And first and foremost, who was even aware of this? Because a lot of people I talk to, and when I've talked to people about what's in the catacombs, they're not aware that there's actually skeletons that are, how do we say, adorned like this. Yeah, Albie, that was my first impression. Yeah, there we go. Crom. And I'm not wondering if, that was kind of something that inspired that as well. RB. Yeah, I guess you're right, RB. Certainly not something I do, but, I'm not going left or right on any of those opinions, but yeah. Hey, Spirit, good question. I don't know in this particular case. Yeah, very bejeweled. So was this a figure that represented somebody who was important in the previous civilization and somehow they managed to protect the skeleton? Or is it a figure who was corrupted? I don't know. I mean, you can look at some of the symbolism, and maybe we need a new branch of symbology to study this symbolism. But who knows? I mean, it could go either way on this one. Although, we just don't know what happened in the past. And maybe this is left up as yet another bit of a trophy, if you will. But who knows? I could be wrong. Why would you go to all this trouble to decorate a skeleton or a corpse like this? And then you can also get this feeling of claustrophobia when you go through some of these catacombs and these crypts. And so, again, you have to ask the question, was that so when people were put in these chambers? Because there are other accounts that say that they were put in the chambers alive. And you might remember there's several stories from certain famous authors that talk about people being buried alive. There's a term for it. I'm not going to say it because that'll get us all kinds of attention that I don't want. Julia S. Decorating ancestors. Yeah, that's one way to put it. And Joe, bones and jewels are both meaningless when the spirit is eternal. And I would certainly agree with that, Joe. I would certainly agree with that. Yeah, Christy, maybe we don't want to know. And maybe there are some things we're not meant to know. And this could be a good example. And this is another really odd image, some of the odd artwork in the catacombs. I mean, what exactly is this representing? I'm not even going to give you my impressions on this one. I mean, what do you think of this? I'd like to get your opinion on this one because, I mean, this is just really, really strange to me. What is this representing? Claustrophobia, try living on a Navy ship. Yeah, it's pretty cramped. Try hanging out in an M1A1 tank for a couple months. We'll see, you know. Oh, Sky Sage, yeah. Cannibals. David, to sin and enjoy this material world. Huh. Anne-Marie Miller. What is the person in the sky presenting? An offering, it looks like? Huh. Kathy. How are we all going to fit in that little building? Oh, and Kathy might have happened upon it. So is there some sign or portent of doom? There's some terrifying event coming and we all need to get in here because this is where we're going to be safe. And then once you go into here, then you go to the catacombs and, you know, we had the book earlier that showed you what happened to all the people that just walked down there on their own free will. You know, I mean, was there even any kind of reset? Or was it just something they were told that happened? And they all got told to go to the underground, you'll be safe in the underground, and then we know what happened to them in the underground. And then once all the people were out of the way, maybe that's when they imposed the physical destruction. I mean, who knows? You have different clues that tell you different things. Or, again, it could just be a work of art. A very disturbing work of art, but, you know, that could be all it is. Yes, RB. Followers, groupthink. Such a powerful component, isn't it? Well, thank you, Sydney. I hope you're enjoying this live. Definitely a good topic. And then again, on the actual so-called crypts themselves, you have more of this fine detail. And what's this representing? Is this representing an entirely different group of people? And what's this figure here on the side? This is definitely something I'd like to see in person. But again, when you look closer up here, you might recall that there's certain symbols that also appeared on my favorite building. I mean, what is this? Really, really odd. You know, you have this one coloring, this one type of material here, but then you have this other coloring. And then you also have some odd masks down here. Very strange. And what is this made out of? Is this marble? Is this something else? Just another one of these odd images that come out of these catacombs. Barbara. Yeah, it may be carved from bone for all we know. Yeah, Wendy, I mean, it had to mean something. We just don't have any idea what it means, so. Yeah, the three with their heads turned. And I mean, we could put a lot of different analysis into this, you know, and who do these people represent? Are these representing the people that were being told that they would be safe, or do these actually represent the last representatives of the previous civilization who didn't go along with it? I mean, we just don't know. You know, what the heck is this creature? I'd like to see it a little bit better. I'll have to see if I can find some other images of this, but this is the best I can do. And then you also have this, where you have examples of more elaborate construction, especially in the ceiling here, leading down into these crypts and these tombs. And so this is why I'm of the mindset that when they constructed these places, you know, where they repurposed from other buildings maybe, were they actually remnants of even earlier structures from a previous era that got repurposed? Who knows? There's all kinds of possibilities on the table. But you get the impression that they wanted to make them look welcoming. Oh yeah, come down here. You'll be safe. Now that's just my read on it. I could be completely wrong. You know, they just decorated it because, you know, they respected the dead so much. Sure, they respected the dead so much that they decided to arrange their bones in a nice, morbid fashion. Because that's what you do when you respect the dead, right? The detail on this is pretty stunning. Polly. Now, why is it always an octagonal ceiling? Good question. I think you may be correct there, Anne-Marie. And we got an exploration coming up. We're really going to examine that in detail. Marie, repurposing old buried buildings. Yes. You know, and if they had all those and the people saw comfort in them, then why not? James, nuclear winter shelters. Then they had to eat each other to survive. Yeah, it could have come down to that. You know, who knows what exactly happened? Officer Donut. Yeah, it's a trap. Where's Admiral Akbar? It's a trap. And then in some of the other catacombs, you get representations such as this. You know, supposedly the more important people who were buried. Got a couple arrows here in the body, and then this very elaborate crypt or tomb. Oh, and I didn't get it in the image because it doesn't go up high enough. But yes, that is our familiar cartouche that we see all over the place. And then, of course, you just have certain churches or cathedrals that are over the catacombs, and they look like this. So again, it definitely begs the question, are we looking at multiple layers and multiple eras? I mean, and that's the very crux of the 5 eras theory right there. Circular floor tiles. There's always something underneath. Yeah, that seems to be a truth. Yeah, and this is the kind of intricacy that you'll see with these catacombs and these crypts. So, Anne Marie, I think the windows perhaps were not closed off at one time. No, probably not. And then just to show you this, I mean, they inform us that there were crypts and catacombs for everybody of all faiths. That's what they tell us. So, you had the Christian catacombs, you had the Jewish catacombs, and yes, you have you have so many Islamic catacombs when you go to the Middle East too. Everybody's got catacombs. Seems to be something everybody was into. Again, if you take the official history at face value. So anyway, all in the Roman area. So if you get there, yeah, maybe you want to check out some catacombs. Now, give me 1 second here. Would you like to see a map? At least a sketch map of what these catacombs might look like. It's a little bit more intricate than you might think. And coming up right now. So yeah, what do you think about that? This is just one set of catacombs. You can see the Appian Way right over here. Yeah, just a little complex, don't you think? What's that look like to you? Oh yeah, always seeing a map's a good thing, isn't it, Polly? Now, I wonder how long it would take us just to poke around and find our way around these. Yeah, Kathy's right. And you are correct. It is a city. Total city, underground city. So maybe something from an earlier era, or maybe something that was built to be a city, underground. Yeah, I'm with Adam on this. It definitely looks more like a modern city map. And were they told that they were going to be safe here? I'm sure they had these maps and gave them to the people and said, here's where you need to flee to. And then here's another one. And so if you don't have these maps, if you don't have any idea what you're doing down there, you can quickly see how these can become labyrinths, random dead ends, and, like maybe you worked your way down this passage. Oh boy, how do I find my way out? I mean, yeah, they're a lot more complicated and a lot more complex than we like to think. Yeah, Polly, I don't know if that would help. Anyways, okay. Well, that's it for the catacombs of Rome. We're going to take a quick look at the secret Vatican archives. Because I had a feeling you might want to see something that's secret. And yes, they fully admit that these archives are secret. Now, before we go into those images, does anybody know what the official name of the secret Vatican archives actually is? And we start with this very sinister looking staircase. Oh yeah, it's always a spiral staircase, isn't it? Let's see if anybody mentioned it. Chemical General, what if they were not underground when built? Very possible. And in some cases, very likely, depending on which underground we're looking at. Fairy Girl, Devil's Portal. No, not quite that obvious about it, but you do have to wonder. Stabulator, how did you get into the secret vault? Well, it's one of those things, Stabulator, where they call it secret, but it's not really so secret, if you follow. Archivium Secretum Vaticum. That's a good one, New West Reset. Okay, well, I'll tell you at the end. But anyway, this is one of the stairways. Let's see if we see any of the usual suspects in the symbols here. Yeah, we got some odd things. It's almost like I see some nagas, some snakes. Maybe I'm just seeing things, I don't know. Not exactly the best image, but you know what happens if I show too high quality images sometimes of certain things, so. But anyway, in the secret archives, you have all these works that go on as far as the eye can see. Now, we'll look at the exterior of this because it's one of those deceptive things. It's kind of like the TARDIS on Doctor Who. Oh, yeah, there you go, Polly. Lion heads. Yeah, May very much so. In the classic tradition, too. Good one, I am Kairos. No, they better not call it that. Yeah, this is the reading room. I guess you have to have a very nice, well-ordained, well-decorated reading room. Although, again, some of these images, you have to ask, what's this representing? Just incredible lighting and incredible beauty. And then the numerous scrolls that they have, documents, depositories. You know, what do they really say on them? What knowledge do they have? Well, apparently they don't have the knowledge of when and where St. Peter was exactly buried, but they'll tell you everything else, apparently. Don't know for sure. But then you have all these interesting old-bound books that are there as well. Now, do these books actually have what's stated on them? What's the contents? A lot of times they'll tell you, well, it's just referring to law because we always have so many law books. But is that really what the case is? You know, actually, you might find hundreds or thousands of more. I'm not saying that you will, just suggesting it's possible. That's true too, Officer Donut. It could be that. Polly almost looks like a mix of Hebrew and Latin. And it might be. You'll see all kinds of anomalies there. And yet, books from every time frame, bound from every time frame. And for our recent exploration, you know, one of our historians told us that the best ways that we lose history is because books simply aren't copied. Well, you'll find all kinds of different works in this archive in different states of repair or disrepair, as it may be. You know, I mean, how old is this paper? Another question I have is, why isn't it protected a little bit better? I mean, this is an official image. Now, I have not seen anything like this personally, but apparently they have lots of archives there. So who knows what they really have? Wendy, stolen loot. Yeah, may well be. Oh, that's a good point there. Yeah, I mean, what kind of smell would you get from that? Now, it gets even more interesting. Then you have these random symbols and then different figures that come up. Now, you could certainly attribute this to a different form of communication, another written form. I'm not going to say what it may look like. I'll leave you to draw your own conclusions, but you do see these in certain areas. And what do they really represent? Well, in simple terms, I don't know. I can guess. I'm not going to guess today. But I just thought I would share it with you. Because as somebody said, maybe we're not supposed to know everything. Yeah, it's a heck of a reading room. And then just, you know, some of the artwork that they have. I mean, what's it representing? What is this all about? Guy with a red cape with, I don't know, cherubs on him? Hard to say. Really, really strange. And funny you talk about the Voynich manuscript. Not the same language, but does look similar, doesn't it? And then there's all kinds of quote-unquote theories for what the Vatican may represent or what can happen there if you go too far in the secret archives. And what sort of things you might be summoning. And then, of course, just some of the treasures that you have. Yes, of course. That whole debate on, you know, if the Catholic Church should actually have material goods or possessions. Should do a show on codified imagery. Yeah, Jamie, I'm probably going to get to that at some point. But it's just interesting seeing all these archives that they have. And here's where you have, I don't exactly know what the heck happened to these. I mean, what is this supposed to represent? Chewed up paper? Is it all tied together? It's really, really peculiar. And of course, this is in your basement, you know, where you'll probably find the Ark of the Covenant. Joking, but who knows? Yeah, everything's melting in this one, Sky Sage. The paper, all of it. Yep, there you go. It is old-fashioned bookbinding. Very old-fashioned bookbinding. Yet, oddly enough, somehow those books survived. They shouldn't have survived those, should they? At least if they're as old as they say. Yeah, so just a lot more questions and different manuscripts, different seals. And who knows what the actual compendium of knowledge is here. A lot of hints, though, that it's a lot, but as I've explored before, a lot of it may be here, and a lot of it may be spread across the land, because why would you keep all your eggs in one basket? Oh, and, of course, it wouldn't be a real place without the checkerboard floor. This is technically part of the Vatican Museum. And then some of these other incredible books, 1840, 1840, 1841. Is that a year? Oh, I don't know. Someone tried telling me about Julian date on one of the comments, and I asked, well, what Julian year is it? Because, even if you have an I or a J, the Julian year is still a 4-digit year, but whatever. Maybe they'll answer me in the comments. I'm kind of curious. And you also have these interesting works. So different kinds of books here. Larger books, binded differently. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hubs. Sure, it's a coincidence. Yeah, and who knows what's really in these books? What kind of knowledge do they contain? Oh yeah, no doubt about it. It could prove that there's an entirely different dating system. Who knows? Yeah, what kind of knowledge? Couldn't tell you. I can only speculate. I have not looked through this archive personally. I would like to. I would very much like to. But I think we all would. Yeah, you're right, Brandon. Lifetime or 100 lifetimes. I am Kairos, record of the epochs. Somebody's got to have it, right? Anyways. And then you've got some of the works that seem to be guarded a little bit more, so who knows exactly what they're saying. Protected, locked up, limited access. And here it is. This is what the exterior looks like. Yeah, not exactly what you expect to see, and there's a reason why I showed you the interior first. It's very, very innocent looking. Oh, it just looks like some old buildings that have been there for a while. You'd never expect there to be secret archives in it. And here's where you actually have it. The Apostolic Library is what they call it. Yeah, it's amazing how cramped everything is in Vatican City, isn't it? How much they fit in that very small area. And then really what is in the underground? We only looked at what's purportedly under St. Peter's, but there could be a lot more for all we know. Why did Napoleon spare the Vatican, Brian asks. Who knows? Maybe Napoleon didn't really exist, or Napoleon was a renegade reset commander. Maybe he never really wanted to destroy the Vatican. It's kind of odd, though, because a lot of people spared the Vatican. Basically, everybody, if you look in the official history. So maybe there's something significant about it. Although, on the other hand, they say it wasn't spared. I suppose it just depends on your perspective. All right. So, let's go to the final part of our exploration. Theories of the necropolis and theories of the Vatican. Because quite frankly, we stay on here, we could be here talking all night. Not that I'd mind that, but... So, we're going to bring up what's really going on with our current theory. So, stop screen, share screen, and this image that you're looking at, this is from the Second Vatican Council. Now, the Second Vatican Council was convened by Pope Paul VI in the 1960s, because, when else would it be? And the concern for the Catholic Church at that time was that it was losing touch with humanity. It was losing touch with the new secular pursuits of humanity. And so the Second Vatican Council was about really revising all the baseline doctrines of the Catholic Church to better connect with what they call the lay people. And therefore, it happened in the early 60s. Michael, the Vatican thinks in centuries. Maybe even on a longer timeline. But who knows? Who knows what was really going on here? However, a lot of people who were historians of the Catholic Church, and it was quite a hot topic in the late 1990s, back when I was still teaching. And in the official history, they say that the Catholic Church made a hard turn after this Second Vatican Council. Now, did it, or is it just representing a hard turn? I don't know. Because prior to this, we didn't have the bones of St. Peter. After this, yes, it's the bones of St. Peter. Prior to this, we didn't have the papal auditorium. After this, Paul VI, we need to build the papal auditorium. Yes, the Paul VI papal auditorium, the building that's right next to St. Peter's. And it has a very peculiar shape to it. Now, I don't think I have to tell you what the shape of this auditorium is. It's this building right here, this trapezoid shape. Has this really interesting oval window in it. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by telling you what it is, and I'm not going to show you pictures that compare it to what people think it looks like, because I think you can see it pretty clearly. Here's another image of it. Yes, built in the 1960s as well. Yeah, if you need someone to spell it out for you. Indeed. And you have to ask the question, could they have built it like that anymore if they tried? Here's what it looks like from above. Yeah, it's a trapezoid. What looks like a trapezoid? I don't know. And here you are from the back looking down the center of it. Boy, I don't know what that looks like. I mean, do I really even have to tell you what this looks like? And don't tell me that this is just a facet of imagination, that my mind is making me see something that's not really there. Come on. Yeah, exactly. But that's what people will say. There are people who really say that. Who really say, oh no, it doesn't look like the obvious. Now, obviously, the people that this was built for, the Pope, they saw this. They didn't say, oh my goodness, tear it down, it can't look like this. Oh no, they approved it and went with it. Oh yeah, there's different lighting schemes too. Yeah, doesn't that look really good in the red lighting scheme? Almost reminds me of another, never mind, I'm going to stop while I'm ahead. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut here on this one. You can all clearly see what it is. I don't have to tell you. Windows are very interesting though. And they do represent something else. There's many different representations behind it. And then this is the actual opening photo when they opened the place in the 1960s. You got Pope Paul VI right there. The Pope that, one, directed the Second Vatican Council, and then two, directed the construction of this very interesting edifice. Oh, and if anybody's asking, yes, I very much think our civilization built this structure. No question about it. Yeah, a little black and white photo. Remember, we had photos that were from 10 and 20 years earlier that were colorized, but, you know, it was the 60s, so it's hard to say. And this is about the closest thing you get to a construction photo of it, and why is it we can't get a good construction photo even of a building like this? I don't know. But you can see the design was already apparent as they were building it. Yeah, I don't wonder, RB. I don't wonder. Yeah, I mean, why don't they just call it that? You know, I mean, you may as well. Yeah, isn't it always? And I don't wonder, F in the chat, if this photo was just put out because it's very clear that this was something that was built in our time, but then they want us to question this too. I don't know. I really don't know. Why can't you get a good image of it? And it also has a little subsurface. Yeah, isn't this interesting? Very, very strange. And then you can see some of the diagrams, and I mean, even the diagrams show you what they were getting at. Very, very odd structure. Okay, and I saved the best for last. The altar, the sculpture that is behind the Pope. And whichever Pope it is, it doesn't really matter. This little sculpture is called the Resurrection. And we'll look at the explanation of it here in a moment, but yeah. Isn't this interesting? Who has seen this sculpture before? Yeah, pretty much. And just let you share all your thoughts, you know. No, not at all, is it, Casey? No, and a lot of people don't, and I understand why. So, something else that's really peculiar. Well, we have this interestingly shaped building from the outside and the inside. We also have this very morbid sculpture. What don't you see in these images? That is the Pope, by the way, right there in the middle. What don't you see in any of these images? What's missing that we'd expect to see? Yeah, I mean, there's many interpretations behind it. Ah, yes. No crosses. Very, very peculiar, isn't it? No crosses, no crucifixes, nothing. Closest thing you got are the Vatican guards. Yeah, it's very, very strange. You know, now here's another rendition of that wonderful work of art. And then some of the close-ups here. And this is probably the most disturbing imagery of all. I'm not going to linger on this too long. I mean, yeah, I don't know what the heck is going on here. Now, we'll talk about this in a second. But, yeah, I mean, sometimes you just don't have any words for some things. And I think this is one of those times. And then the final look. And here's the little excerpt we have on it. The Vatican commissioned Mr. Fazzini to provide a work for its modern auditorium. Remember, this is after the Second Vatican Council. The result was the Resurrection, a statue depicting Jesus rising from a nuclear bomb crater. Suddenly, there came to me the idea of Christ preaching peace for 2,000 years, and the place where he prayed for the last time, the olive grove of Gethsemane. And yes, that's a word, and yes, I'm intentionally mispronouncing it, and it's okay. I had the idea of depicting Christ as if he were rising again from the explosion of this large olive grove, peaceful site of his last prayers. He rises from this crater, I don't see a crater, torn open by a nuclear bomb. Why a nuclear bomb? An atrocious explosion, a vortex of violence and energy. The resurrection is molded in red bronze and yellow brass and measures 66 feet by 23 feet by 10 feet. You can't make this stuff up, can you? Anyways. You just can't make it up. You know, I'm not even going to say anything more about that. So, not to linger on those images, but to go back to the original image that we have here of where this is. So, this is actually from St. Peter's. And you get the idea of St. Peter's being something very different than what this structure is down here. Yeah. And I think you're all saying it. And so, here's the question we have to ask. And this is where it comes down to the final theories. This is very obvious. I mean, this is so obvious, you have to ask the question, is this a magnet? Is this to divert our attention? Is this to keep our attention fixated on this? Is it all by design? I mean, because it is so unbelievably obvious, it's not even funny. And so that's the question I've always asked. Are the answers to be found here? Or is this really just a gigantic trophy, if you will? All these remaining structures, St. Peter's, the catacombs, they're displayed as trophies, and all this is just a representation to fix our attention on it. Because how could you not? How can you possibly justify or say anything about this that makes any sense? You really don't. So I don't think I have to say anything about it. It's all very obvious. The only question here is someone just bragging, if you will, in a way? I think they are. But there could be something much more hideous than we're seeing here than meets the eye. The other thing is, it does seem clear that our eyes are supposed to be here. And even doing this little exploration, it seems clear to me that this is where we're supposed to be looking. So we'll look here, but we'll look everywhere else too. Because I'm certainly not one to keep my eyes fixed in one place, as you've probably figured out. Atom bomb, it's revealing their agenda in plain sight. Ah, yes. And isn't it amazing how many people try to justify what's revealed in plain sight? And I think there is a lot of that going on. But anyways, I will, of course, leave it to you to decide what to think about this and all the things that we looked at in this exploration. There's a lot of different details that we could follow. There's a lot of different paths that we can follow. And if you've been with the channel for a while, we have explored the libraries in detail. And it seems obvious when it comes to the libraries that we are supposed to look in certain places for the lost knowledge. However, there are hints that it is all over the place. And that's about all I can really say and reveal right now. But in any event. Okay, well, I know this exploration went a little longer, but there was a lot of great things to cover here. And, you know, the theories. This could be something that is being shown in our face, in plain sight. This could be something that's also being shown in our face and to direct our attention towards. Don't keep my secrets. I don't have any secrets. I really don't. I'm as much in the dark as all of you are. I don't have any insider knowledge. When we do these explorations, it's all about trying to ask the right questions to find the right path. Well, thanks, Heidi. I appreciate that. And no, it's not an easy topic to cover. It's really not. All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this exploration. And we will continue on this next week. And before you depart, please hit the like button. And it was wonderful to see what everybody had to say. And I know I missed a lot in the chat, so I'm going to probably be spending a lot of time the next couple of days rereading it. So thank you, everybody, for being here. And this was a very interesting exploration.